The tale begins in Japan in 1970 when Tokyo City was destroyed, and there was fire everywhere due to the attack of the monsters, and a few magicians were fighting it. One of the men ordered the other to fire the monsters, but it didn't cause many injuries to the demon, and they were stunned and about to cry at the thought that they were going to die as the monster was about to attack them. But suddenly, a martial artist who blocked the attack of the beast appeared, and he told the other men that they had done well, while they were crying. He called for the general to retreat and told them to leave everything to him. One of the soldiers instructs the other to exit, and then his companion asks him if they could run away and go that man to hide. He thinks he is a dumbass and asks him if he doesn't know who that man is. He told him that he was the founder of the magic and the strongest mage, and he was stunned to see that he was the famous Ikegami Minato. The soldier cleared his tears and said that's right, the person standing before them was him. He was standing alone in front of so many monsters, and the monster attacked him, but he hit it first and thought that he was very slow, and he struck him, due to which the beast divided into so many parts, and he told the other monsters to come to him. One day, many monsters suddenly appeared worldwide, and this event became known as a calamity, and human weapons were ineffective against the demons. However, humanity began opening its eyes to the possibilities of magic. The sun became the only thing capable of defeating monsters, and the battle between monsters and humanity continued for over a decade. Back to the present, the first and the most powerful mage, Ikegami Atsumu, and nobody except him could save the world. The demon god appeared, and he recognized him and thought he was the top-ranked monster, the boss of the calamity, and he was impressed by its enormous magic power and pressure. The beast was staring at him, and he thought that his whole body was cut up, and the monster attacked him while he was protecting himself against his attack by creating the barrier. The beast suddenly starts using 4/10th level magic, and he realizes that he was using his full power from the start and was trying to break his barrier, and succeed. The protagonist was startled as he was using the 6-element compound magic and trying to block the attack, but it was getting difficult for him to hold him back. After a blast, he fell on the ground. The boss monster was in front of him. He wondered if this was the strongest monster, the demon god, and he realized that at this rate, he wouldn't be able to defeat it, so he was left with no other choice than to use his last option. The power of the magic is determined by its rank, and the number of magic circles determines a magic position. He thought that the highest rank a demon god could achieve is the 14th rank. While his limit was the 15th, he decided to use the 15th rank Innocent Void and attacked the demon boss, and the demon fell on the ground, and after that, he fell too. He was pleased as he was finally able to defeat the boss and thought that with this, the calamity could eventually end. But he used all of his magic and thought that it wouldn't be the wrong way to die as a great sage, as he lived the extraordinary life, and he died. His soul departed from his body, went to the hospital, and entered the patient's body, who started moving his fingers and sat and was shocked because he was alive. He wonders how he is alive as he uses all of his magic. He looks at the mirror, goes near it, is stunned to see his face, and wonders who this man is. The doctor and the nurse entered the room. While standing in front of the mirror, the nurse called him, and he looked toward her. Later, he was lying on the bed, and the doctor was removing his dressing. He was shocked to see the wound and couldn't believe it. The doctor said that he lost consciousness and went into critical condition due to the traffic accident. But he was completely healed now and told him that it was almost like he was healed by holy magic. He thought it was because his body automatically healed him with the holy magic, and he wondered about the traffic accident. He asked the doctor if his magic power was completely depleted. The doctor wondered what he meant by the magic power. The protagonist said that he was fighting the monsters during the calamity. The doctor and nurse were stunned and thought his mental status was altered, so they asked him his name and current year. He said that he was Ikegami Minato, and the year should be 1970, and asked them if he was right. The doctor wondered if it was the sequela and said it seemed like a memory impairment. He told him that his name was Kusanagi Minato, and the year was 2022. He was shocked to know his name and the year. He thought it didn't seem they were young and looked at the device and wondered if it was the TV, as it was so thin and produced a cleaner image than his previous life. He looked at the calendar and realized that the year was 2022. He was stunned to look at the tab and wonder what that small device was, as he had never seen it before and wondered if it was the future. The doctor told him that the calamity he mentioned occurred 50 years ago, and hadn't appeared since then, and he was shocked to know that the calamity never happened after that and asked about the monsters. The doctor told him that although there were monsters, not many of them were left, and he thought that if it was true, then the world might have achieved peace, and he thanked God for the peace. The doctor told him that Ikegami Minato died 50 years ago in a great calamity, and he sacrificed himself to save the world and people, so he is not that person. The protagonist thought that he had died at that time, and after that, he reincarnated into Kusanagi Minato and wondered why he was reincarnated 50 years later. After some weeks, he went to his home and entered the room and thought it was his room. While looking at the book, he realized that Kusanagi Minato's parents passed away when he was a child. After that, he was kicked out by his foster parents and sent to a boarding school. Since then, he has been getting by with his parents' inheritance, and after lying on the bed, he thinks there are no such things as reincarnation magic. He was looking at his card and wondered if his reincarnation was the work of a god or if it was all by chance. He realized that he was studying at the Magic Academy and thought that, at his time, there was no reason for one to exist. He found it interesting and was startled by hearing the ringing of his phone. Tadano-kun was calling him, and he wondered what he should do with this device. But he didn't care, so he threw his phone back. He received a message from him who heard about his discharge and told him to come to the academy as he didn't get enough money. Later, at the Kamui Magic Academy, he looked at the students and his heart was pumped at the thought of attending the school as an adult. He thought it was all great, but looking at a boy attacking the dummy, he wondered what kind of magic this was and what kind of magic power he was so disappointed and shocked at seeing. He thought that it couldn't be true as their power was like 1/10 of the power compared to the newbie magicians of his time, and wondered if they could succeed in becoming magicians, and thought that the magic much declined during this time. Later in Class 2A, he looked at his class while sitting on his chair, and he was excited TS, like in the past, and wondered if he had any friends there. These students appeared behind him, and one of them was angry at him because he ignored his text and said that although he was Kusanagi, the protagonist asked him who he was, which made him furious. He kicked him but managed to dodge, and Tadano-kun said the powerless piece of trash like him dared to forget him. And he remembered his name as he saw it on his phone screen and thought that he was his friend, and he moved his hand toward him as he finally remembered his spaz and asked him if he knew what being a friend meant. He grabbed his hand and said they should get along, but moved away and said he was not talking about that kind of friend. He grabbed his collar and told him to hand over the money to him as he had plenty left in his parents' inheritance, and he got it that Kusanagi was being bullied. Tadano gets furious and, while punching, tells him not to get so full of himself. Then a girl named Maizuha opens the classroom door and says good morning. He blushes on seeing her and tells him not to forget about the money and leaves. The teacher was teaching them about the great calamity that in 1970, the great sage sacrificed himself to the end. And he told them that the final calamity is called the Great Calamity. All over the world, monsters appear, and this humanity despaired, but the pioneer of magic called the Great Sage thought differently. He didn't give up and defeated all the monsters by himself, and in the end, he confronted the Calamity Boss, who is the demon god whom he crushed at the risk of his own life. After that, the calamity didn't occur while the protagonist was listening to the lecture with the head down. The teacher asked the students who Ikegami Minato was, and she raised her hand, so the teacher asked her for the answer, and she said that he was the only survivor of the first calamity, and was the first magician and was the reason why Kamui Magic Academy was built. She said that he was the hero of the world, the idol of every magician, and her teacher said that she was correct as he was the greatest magician in human history and told everyone that this would be on the test. The protagonist lifted his head and thought they should make it stop as it was so embarrassing for him. He didn't expect to get tortured like that. He thought he shouldn't come to school and thought it was just like the doctor said that the world is at peace and wondered if that's why the magicians become weak. He looked at the window and thought it was so peaceful, and the teacher ended his class there and told the students that tomorrow was their magic power assessment. He came near him and asked if he heard about the assessment and said that it would be fun to see how pathetic his magic power is. He wonders if that guy ever shut up and thinks there was no point in staying there. While leaving, Tadano asks him if he is right that his parents also had no magic power. He apologized as he forgot that he was an orphan and laughed at him but said he was a jerk, which made him angry, and told him to get off his high horse. He was using magic to attack him, and everyone was shocked and asked him if he would use it in the classroom. He attacked him, and Maizuha rushed toward him, thinking it was dangerous. After the colossal blast, everyone rushed away while she told him that he couldn't use the magic over a meager squabble as someone might get hurt. But he told her the protagonist was trying to pick a fight with him, so it was not his fault. Smoke spread everywhere, and he appeared from it without a single scratch, which made everyone shocked. Tadano-kun was shocked to see him unscathed after taking his magic head on and wondered what was happening there. The protagonist thought that if it was level 1 magic, he could defend it with his magical barrier, but he didn't need to use it actively. He said that he tolerated him because he was the child, but he needed to be punished while they were shivering in fear, and so high energy emerged from his body that lightened the class. Nobody could move and wondered what was happening, and Maizuha wondered what kind of magic this was and what was happening while he approached and pushed his hand toward him. Then, the teacher arrived, asked what the nose was, questioned if someone used magic there, and asked him what was going on there, but he took a deep breath, smiled, and said that nothing happened in the class. He told the teacher that maybe someone was using the magic outside, but the teacher said there was no magic club activity on the school grounds. He told the students outside this department may use the spell as he wishes, as the magicians are keen on singing their magic. The teacher asked him about the smoke, and he said that it also came out of the class, and the teacher said that because it's Kusanaga's words, it might be true. He told the students to return to their seats as he would find the culprit, bid farewell to the teacher, and apologized in his thoughts as he would create false evidence to close down the case, and everyone was shocked. Tadano-kun cursed him, while the main lead thought that even though the student's magic level was too low, he wondered if they could get down the monster in real life and thought that even if there were no calamities, monsters would be around, so he decided to go out and check. Later, at Old Shibuya, most of the buildings were destroyed by the catastrophe, and he was surveying the area and realized that this place had also changed a lot. He checked the site but couldn't sense any monster nearby. Everything was ruined, but he thought the police might take them out. After traveling some distance, he could feel the monster's aura coming from far away, and he also sensed a lone human there, so he rushed there. The girl was sitting on the ground and was terrified and telling the monster to stay away from her, and the beast opened its mouth to eat her. Then he appeared, and the monster roared, but he could easily defeat it. He looked at the girl who was glaring at him shockingly, and he looked at her badge and realized that she was the police magician. He told her to be careful next time, and she thanked him. After he left, she wondered who he was as he seemed like a great magician. But on thinking about him, he realized that he didn't even chant any spells. After covering some distance, he uncovered his face and felt he was suitable to cover his face because he had just reincarnated and didn't want to stand out. He thought the police magic levels had also gone a lot because she was about to get killed by the low-level monster and realized that the people of this time could not defeat a monster. Not only the students but also the police, as the magicians in this timeline have become weaker, and he assumed that even in this period, they need his powers and decided to annihilate all the surrounding monsters for now. The next day at the Magic Academy, the teacher told the students that, as they were informed, they would measure their magic power today, and he instructed them to make sure to get both their amount and attribute. They are the most important value if they hope to become professional magicians, and the protagonist wonders if he could measure his power without that machine. He thought that besides the students, the teacher also didn't know something so basic that the magic perception is the foundation of magic. While he was thinking, she wondered if now was the right time to talk to him. Their classmates were shocked as they talked to each other further, or she initiated the conversation. Maizuha Yuika said it was the time they spoke to each other, so she decided to introduce herself and told him she was the second daughter from the magic noble house of Maizuha. When he asked her what the magic noble was, she was stunned as he didn't know. She said they were from the leading 4 noble houses and the head of magicians. He thought that nothing like that existed in his time and never heard about this family. After examining her, he realized that her magic power was also not great. He thought her power was surely lackluster because of belonging to the prominent magician's family, and she wondered what was wrong with him as he should be more grateful after she so generously started a conversation with him. While Tadano-kun wonders about his deal and why he was yapping on with her, the protagonist asks her what business the Meiji nobility have with him. She was enraged and thought that the more he talked, the more he pissed her off, but she took deep breaths to calm herself down. Because she was a noblewoman, she should think about her dignity. She wonders what's wrong with him and remembers that when he got hit by magic yesterday, he came out unscathed. There must be a reason. She was about to ask him about yesterday's incident, but the teacher told them to get ready and he left her behind happily. As it was time to get measured, she called him, but he ignored her. She thought that she would see his true power after his assessment. The next was the turn of Tadano-kun. He poured his energy into the device, and his magic power came out to be 1000. His attribute is fire, and he was contented as his assessment got better than before. The protagonist thought that if that's 1,000, then the measuring standard hasn't changed over the past 50 years. The next turn was of Maizuha Yuika. She filled her power in the machine, and her magic power came out to be 2,000, and her attribute was water. Everyone was thrilled to see this. The teacher told them they had the magic power at the top of this year's level and would make fantastic magicians. The students cheered them as they expected that from Tadano, the fire magic prodigy, and Maizuha-sama, and thought they were incredible. Kusanagi Minato thought that she might be joking as she was at the top with 2,000 and thought that she was not much better than an amateur, while she wondered how is Kusanagi, as this was the true power of her family. She was looking at him so proudly, and he thought she shouldn't look at him with that proud face because it was unbearable for him, and the next was his turn. The students gossiped that he was ranked bottom last year and thought that although he was impressive at his studies, his talent in magic was not that good. Tadano thought that he didn't have any talent and wanted him to embarrass himself in front of Yuika while she was looking at him with a smile and wondering how much magic power he had. But she was sure that he wouldn't be able to beat her. He was standing near the device and wondered what he should do, as back in his days he stood out too much and it was a pain for him, and he wonders if he should hold back a bit. He put his hand on the device, filling his energy in it, and decided to give his all to it as he wanted to check if it could measure the power of the great sage. So much energy emerged that it spread out of the building, and she wondered what was going on. The measuring device meter was spinning continuously, but its energy didn't end, and the machine exploded and broke. Everyone was stunned as the power was unbearable for them. He thought that the machine would break after getting just a little bit serious, and thought nobody here could sense his magic power, and wondered if they could become magicians. The teacher asked the students if they were hurt, but they said they were all perfectly fine. He asked the protagonist if he was fine, and he said yes. The teacher told him that he was lucky as he was right in the middle of that explosion, and said that it was the first time he had seen a measuring device getting destroyed. He wondered if it was the defective device, but thought it was not good as they wouldn't be able to know its magic power and attribute now, and he asked him if it was a bad thing. The teacher told him that they divided the students into groups for combat class and were going to decide on a group after seeing his result. But the device broke. He asked Tadano if he could take him in his group, and he winked his eye at his friend and agreed to his sir. The teacher thought it was great, as if it was him then he could rest assured, and he whispered in the protagonist's ear that he would be looking forward to it. Later, they were at Old Shibuya as the monsters were still inhabiting places severely destroyed by the Great Catastrophe, and the teacher told the students that the current Shibuya was abandoned. At regular intervals, magicians and police subjugate monsters here, so the academy students must also help with that. The teacher told them they didn't need to worry because magicians had removed half of the demons, and the protagonist didn't expect the practical class. He thought that even the students should be able to take out the few monsters as they would be working in groups. He looked around and realized that he had come there last night, but he felt weird because he thought he had taken out all the monsters. Still, he could sense some, but he couldn't sense any sign of disaster there, so he wondered why there are monsters still showing up there. Two students were talking. One said they should compete, and the other said she would not lose today, while he listened to their conversation and thought that although it was the practical exam, they were still carefree. Their teacher told them that their practical class had started now and instructed them to ensure they worked as a team while he looked at the teacher and left. Later, he was talking with the wall, and Tadano-kun told him to stay there and not get in their way. He said to him that he is kind to him, so he shouldn't be carried away as he is not going to go easy on him this time. While he was cleaning the dust from his shirt, the protagonist tells him that if he doesn't like him, he should ignore him, and he gets furious and tells him not to talk to him, and he thinks he is the bottom of the barrel scum. He said that he was the trash, but he didn't know why Maizuha was so interested in him, and he thought for a while, and came to a conclusion and asked him if he liked her. He was furious, but then the man heard the noise and turned around while Tadano cast the spell to attack him, said that he will kill him today. The protagonist told him not to do it, but he said there was no point apologizing. Now the main lead told him to look behind, but he said he wouldn't get fooled by his childish tricks. Then he heard the sound and was stunned and looked behind where a giant monster was standing, and they were terrified as they never thought there would be a monster around and wondered when and how it appeared. They asked why a demon soldier was there, and his friend told him that only he could win against him and requested him to defeat it. He was overconfident and thought it was light work for him. He cast the spell, attacked him using his fire attribute, and thought the job was done. His friend applauded him, thinking he had defeated it, but the monster was refined. He was stunned as his attack didn't even cause a scratch on him, and the main lead believed that a demon soldier couldn't be taken down with his level 1 magic. The monster was approaching them, and they were shivering in fear, and he was crying as he thought his death was near. The beast moved his hand to grab him but was stunned to see the protagonist standing behind and remembering how he defeated his fellow and moved back. The protagonist appeared before them and said the demon soldier could tell which was more assertive. He approached the monster and attacked him. They were crying and said that he wouldn't be able to defeat the demon with level 1 magic, so they would all die there. The monster used the level 2 magic rock break to attack them, and he smirked as he was then using the level 1 magic fire arrow. There was an explosion, and they wondered what just happened. Tadano was shocked and wondered if Kusanagi just killed that demon soldier, but he didn't want to believe it and thought it was impossible that someone like him could defeat it. He felt that if it was his level 1 magic, he could believe it, but he found it strange that the demon soldier was found in Shibuya and that he killed every monster yesterday, yet they appeared again and found it weird. He wonders if that is the lousy omen before the disaster and if the situation is more pressing than expected. He remembers in the past when they attacked humans and lost their loved ones and became sad. He thought that even if the calamity were to happen again, he still promised that he would save everyone. While they were talking, he defeated the demon soldier and wondered if he was that old Kusanagi. He was angry and hit the wall while Maizuha was watching that all from behind the wall. She used level 1 magic aqua saucer to attack the monster, and her class fellow applauded her and thought she was fantastic. She felt that ordinary people are such a drag as just this much surprised them and believed that it couldn't be helped because she is a genius. She saw the protagonist with Tadano, told them she would see them later, and left when she saw them fighting the Dion soldier she thought couldn't handle that monster. She decided to help them because she was a member of the Maizuha family. She rushed toward them and told them to run away but was startled by the explosion. The protagonist defeated the demon soldier, and she was surprised to see that his magic defeated the monster. She remembered that he used to be extremely timid and had no aptitude for magic, but he felt like an utterly different person now. She was stunned to realize she didn't see him chanting any spell, and wondered if he used the magic without chanting and how he could defeat the demon with level 1 magic. She remembered that the Demon King is rank 2 and the Demon God is ranked 1 as the number of effective ranks was fixed for each demon, so it is common sense for each magician. She thought that the magicians needed at least level 3 magic to defeat the demon soldier, so it was impossible to beat it with level 1 magic. When he got close to her, she hid and wondered why she was hiding from him. She looked at him, and he said that peeking around is an excellent hobby. She was stunned and asked him how he knew she was hiding there, and he said that if she was a mage, it had been crazy not to know. He sighed and asked if they couldn't sense the magic. He left while she told him to wait and asked him what he was talking about, but he already disappeared from her sight. He watched her from the roof of the building, decided to check around the building for the monsters, and realized that no demon monster was left, but many magical beasts were present. He said that even the Tadano, who was considered an excellent student, acted like that, so he felt that other students would have a hard time even against the magic beast, so he decided to reduce the number of the beast. His rage covered the area around the Shibuya station, and he used the level 2 magic barrette and launched so many magical bullets that the students thought it was the shooting star. Maizuha wondered if it was magic and realized that it had multiple magic abilities while the monsters and the quantity surrounding the two students was too much, so they could not take this anymore. The beast was attacking her but suddenly got hit by the protagonist's magic and cut into many pieces, and her fellow asked her if she was alright while she was confused. The protagonist was watching that all from the roof of the building and felt good to kill them all, but he thought that he overdid it as he ended up killing most of them as the class would not be able to proceed and felt he needed to hold himself back. He jumped down from the building and thought there was no need for him to hide his power, but standing out was also a pain for him, and he went where the teacher and other students were gathered. The teacher observed the beast and wondered how so many magic beasts could be left, but the herd should have been chiefly hunted down. He thought all of them were hunted down with a single strike by someone skilled. He felt that it might be a null attribute magic as firing countless bullets is this magic, but he had never seen something like that and thought that things could have been troublesome for him without this magic. Firing 2 of these bullets is not a big deal, but when the number reaches above 6, it becomes difficult, and they realized that it might not done by the students. The students were furious and asked the teacher why there were so many magic beasts there as they all nearly died, and the teacher apologized to them. He told them that he was informed that the police cleared most of the pack, but he should also have confirmed it from the school side and apologized to them for putting them all in danger. One of the students asked the teacher if someone had come to save them, but he didn't know about it, and she said that she wanted to thank him for saving her life. The teacher thought it was probably neither the police nor an official mage, so it might be an illegal magician. But he appreciated him as he saved them and thanked that stranger magician. Later, the students were talking about the magical bullets and wondering what that was, and the protagonist was relieved to know that everyone was okay and was relieved that Tadano and his friends were also fine while he was glaring at him furiously. Maizuha looked at him, thought he had defeated a demon soldier with level 1 magic, and wondered if that infinite magic was also his work. She believed in the fire attribute and null attribute magic, as no students could use 2 magic attributes, not even him. So she thought that she was overthinking it, as there was no way he could use 2 magical qualities. She wanted to believe that the null attribute user was a different person, but she couldn't deny that he had defeated a demon soldier and wondered what he was. Tadano's friend wonders if those looking things are also Kusanagi's work, but he tells them that it is impossible. But he does beat the other monster. Tadano-kun shouted at them to shut up, otherwise he would kill them, and said there was no way a loser like him could be that strong, and thought something fishy about him. His friend agreed with him and remembered that he used to be a coward. He felt that he might be cheating in some way, and was furious as he dared to follow him, so he decided to reveal his true character. After school, on his way home, he saw them, and he said that they were waiting for him. The protagonist said that they were very persistent and told them that studying magic would be the better use of their time. He said that he only talked and called him a cheater, and he wondered when he cheated, but he told him to stop playing dumb, as there was no way he could use that kind of magic. He was sure that he used some dirty trick. The main lead was stunned and sighed, thinking that they could be reasoned with, and he told him to follow him, as he would give him props for not running away. The protagonist said there was no need for him to run away, but he told him to stop spouting nonsense, and while punching him, he asked if he could use his magic here. They beat him, but it didn't even cause a tiny scratch on him. Tadano asked him what had happened and if he couldn't do anything without his magic. He said that even if he begged him, he would not forgive him, while the protagonist thought that they should forget about hurting him, as they could not scratch him. His magical power automatically defended him, so even if they hit them, it wouldn't affect him. He found them annoying and wondered if he should pretend to get hit. While they were hitting them, Maizuha Yuika appeared and asked them what they were doing. They looked behind and were stunned to see her. He told her that nothing was happening, as they were playing around, but she said that she knew they bullied Kusanagi and was angry at the thought that the students of her magic academy were bullies, and asked them if they weren't ashamed of themselves. He glared at him and thought that it was all because of him that Yuika was now disgusted with him, and she grabbed his hand and told him to get out of there. He was shocked to see her holding his hand and became furious and cursed and attacked him because he wanted to kill him. He looked at him and shouted what he was doing, but he didn't hear her as he tried to kill him. His companion also helped him to attack them, while she told him to stay away as it was dangerous. The massive fire was reaching them, and she covered herself, while Tadano said that even cheating shouldn't help him against this much power. His friend thought it looked terrible and wondered if they were dead, but he felt they were an idiot as they were afraid, and told them they accidentally used magic outside of school, which got out of control. The Kusanagi just got caught in the middle that all happened there, but he thought they did go too far. The protagonist appeared from the dust and said that he had tolerated them, thinking they were just a brat, but their stupidity could only be cured by death, so it's the time to discipline them. He was shocked to see him alive even after getting hit by that much magic, and Kusanagi said that it could not tolerate him as he dragged Yuika into this and asked them how rotten they were. Tadano-kun said it was all their fault as they dared to make him a fool, and said they would be attacking until he died and the protagonist had the small magical circle. They laughed, wondering what kind of crappy magic circle it was, and they shot him, saying that he would be sure that he died this time. The protagonist used the magic drain on them, and they were bound by it. He told him to let them go after a few seconds. No strength was left in their body, and they fell to the ground and were unconscious. He sat next to them and thought that he absorbed a little bit of magic, and they were all out and wondered if it would make them reflect a bit. She asked what magic he used, what happened there, and why Tadano and his friends were unconscious. While he was leaving, she told him to wait for a minute, and she spouted non-stop, so any questions about what kind of magic he used and what happened there. She asked him why he was not supposed to be able to use magic properly, and wondered who exactly he was, while he took a cold sigh and thought she was so annoying. He said that instead of asking him questions, she should be saying something else to him, but she turned her face around, said she would give her rewards for helping her, and thanked him. When she looked back at him after showing her gratitude, he vanished again, and she got enraged and shouted where he had gone this time. Later at night, he went to the old Shibuya and took a round of the area to check for the monster, as he had a terrible feeling, as he thought, although he killed all the monsters in the afternoon, the area became full of them again. He wondered if that was a kind of an omen and thought that if it was just this city alone, then enough to handle this. But he could also sense them in other places. He felt that it must be too much for the police, and the magicians were not good either, and he knew that he couldn't kill all the monsters in Japan alone. He wondered what he should do about this and devised a plan. He jumped from the building as he wanted to wipe the monsters around first. But he should take care of this carefully so he wouldn't stand out, and he used the magic bullets on the monsters below and killed them. Meanwhile, a drunk man was walking alone in the street and singing when a magical beast appeared behind him and opened its mouth to eat him. But the protagonist attacked it in the blink of an eye and grabbed it behind the wall. The drunk man looked behind, but there was no one, and he thought he might have an imagination while the protagonist was beating the monster. He looked back, wondering if he got caught, while a lady recorded all the incidents of him attacking the monster and uploaded it, and was contented as she captured the viral-worthy material. Later, they were at the principal office, and their teacher told them that they came to know that some students of the school were seen using magic outside the school grounds. He told them that if it was true, they had no choice but to expel those students, so he wanted them to explain what exactly happened. And Tadano-kun said that they didn't use the magic. He pointed to the protagonist and said that Kusanagi came to them looking for a fight, and he wondered how he could lie so casually, and was impressed. He thought that he couldn't keep his mouth shut as it would be a drag, so he decided to explain himself. But before he could explain to himself, Yuika said that it was all lies. They were stunned and looked at her while she was enraged and told the teacher that Kusanagi was getting bullied by Tadano and his friends, who were the first to use the magic. Because she said they used the magic first, the teacher asked her if the protagonist also used the magic, and she said yes, but that was all for self-defense since he didn't do anything wrong. And he was stunned. Tadano said they also didn't do anything wrong, but she told him to shut up, asked what kind of person bullies someone, and then blamed them when faced with the consequences. She asked him if he was not ashamed of himself, but he said it was all his fault, which is not worthy of this school because he was cleaning the trash. She told him that he was the one who was not worthy of this school, and he told her that he was at the top of the class and was the only one who was worthy of standing beside her, not him. She wondered what he was talking about, and he told her to open her eyes and not to close them for that unworthy guy, and then told her to look at him and become his woman. She said there was no chance for him, and he was shocked. Then she said that he was rejected because he was a violent bully, and the timing of the confession made zero sense, and her words struck him like an arrow. The protagonist looked at him, who was lying on the ground, and thought that although he knew that he deserved this, he was brutal. The principal said that after hearing from all sides, it looked like Tadano and his friends were at fault there, and Kusanagi was using the magic for self-defense. He said that they don't need people who use magic for selfish desire, so he expelled them all, but his friend requested the principal not to expel them as they did this all because Ju-chan told them. The teacher told the protagonist and Yuika to return to their classes, and they asked permission to leave and left the dean's office. On their way to the class, she was furious and said that he was the worst and she hadn't been that pissed off in a while. He asked her what would happen to them, and they were expelled. She told him they wouldn't be able to become mages anymore, which was obvious, and she scolded him and told him that he needed to speak up for himself. He thought he was going to speak, but she then spoke up. He looked at her, and she wondered what was wrong. And he said that now, if he thought about it, just how many times she had tried to save him. She saved him in the class when they got into a fight and went into the dean's office too and said that she was the crazy good girl. She blushed and told him to shut up and rushed to the class first. He smiled and touched his body and thought that Kusanagi Minato had died, and he got incarnated and wondered if he got bullied to death or if it was a normal car accident. He didn't know about that, but he was sure about one thing. They were guilty of something and hoped this would pay off. Later, Maizu Haruka and Katsuragi Ryuji, who were in third-year class, were at the dean's office and asked him if students were using magic outside the school, and a few of them also caught up. The dean told them it was right, but no harm was done to the general public. Then the student asked him why he called her, and he said that the student who got caught up in this was Maizuha Yuika. She understood the situation and thanked him for reporting this to her. The dean told her to give his regard to her father, and she told him to rest assured as her father is willing to invest in the school. The boy asked him if what the deal told them was true, that Kusanagi might be absurdly strong, and she said that fighting multiple times would be nearly impossible. He wouldn't be able to win unless there were a huge power discrepancy, and he asked her if she thought he might be stronger than them. She said no, but she was interested, so he asked her what they would do, and she said that they would confirm the student's competence first, and then decide whether they should expel her sister. It sounded interesting to him. Meanwhile, he felt bored in the class and thought that because it was so peaceful, he had lost all his motivation. The students were looking at his video and said it was the Black Mage. He was startled to hear the Black Mage and wondered if that was the same as a magic noble, but decided to ignore it as it didn't concern him. The teacher entered the class, called him, and told him that the students who couldn't get measured last time would get measured now. She looked at him and wondered if he was healed and thought that this time she would find out what he was capable of. But she was stunned to see her sister there and wondered what she was doing. The next turn to assess the power and attribute was of the protagonist, and the teacher told him to start the magic power assessment. He thought he should be careful this time as he destroyed the device in his last examination. He put his hand on the device and tried to control his power output, and the number on the device moved slowly. He gets tired, and his teacher asks him if he is all right, and he realizes that they managed to get his result. This time, his power is 100, and he doesn't have any attributes. She was shocked to know that he didn't have any attributes, and her sister looked at the score while the students were talking, and that his score was the lowest in their batch. They thought having no characteristics was quite rare, and they believed that it meant he was useless. At the same time, Katsuragi Ryuji realized that there was no truth behind the fight and the talk of him defeating the delinquent himself. She told him to let go as they finished their business there. The students made fun of him as he got tired just from the reassessment, and he told his friend that he would end up that way if his magic power were that low. The teacher told him not to overthink it as the amount of magic power one has doesn't mean everything. Muziha Yuika thought something was wrong because the protagonist could defeat the demon soldier, so he should be able to use the dual attributes of fire and none. She had never heard anything like adjusting their amount of magic power and wondered what he did. He took a peaceful breath as he was able to get the perfect result after doing some precise magic manipulation. But it was taking a toll on him. Luckily, he got a grip on it. While returning, he asked her if she was also in the assessment room, and she said she was just a little curious about his magic power and attributes. Maizu Haruka told her to stop, and the protagonist asked who they were. She said that she was the eldest daughter of the Maizuha family. The guy next to him was her fellow, and both of them were third-year students. He asked her if she needed anything, but she said that she no longer had business with him. He got near her sister and said that it seemed like they weren't even a match against the delinquents. She heard that she was saved by Kusanagi, whose magic power amount is merely 100, and asked her if it was true, and she said it was true. She told her to quit the academy, but Yuika asked her why she should stop. Then, her sister asked him if she had ever won against her even once. Whether it was academic, sports, or magic craft, she never failed to lose against her in everything, and she thought that she was not suited to be a mage. So only her being one to become the mage was more than enough. She wanted to give her opinion, but her sister told her that all she needed to do was to listen to what she said, and she told her to quit the academy and enroll in a regular school. While she was crying, her sister asked her if she had heard her, and she was about to say yes when the protagonist said that she was being quite arrogant. She asked him what he said, and he told her that she kept talking non-stop without bothering to what the other party wanted to say, and he asked her if it was not arrogance, then what he should call it. Maizu Haruka told him this was a conversation between the family members, so the outsider should stay out of it. The protagonist asks her if she called it a conversation because it just sounded like she was ordering her sister around, and she gets angry and asks him what he said. He said that to coerce someone out of their living is something even the family member is not allowed to do. The same goes for forcing one to give up their dreams, but she said that her younger sister doesn't have what it takes to be a mage as she never won against her even once. Yuika was crying and thought that it was just like what her sister said, that she didn't have the talent, but she had been telling herself that she was a genius and had the aptitude to be a mage when she had never won against her. Kusanagi Manito said that she could win against her, and Yuika looked at his face. Her older sister was shocked to hear this and asked him if he said that she could win against her. He told her that it was still impossible for now, of course, but in 2 weeks she would win against her, and she suggested him to have a 2-on-2 magic duels. He said 2-on-2 matches, and she asked him if he was planning to run away after spouting all that nonsense, but he told her that he was not talking nonsense as he would also participate in the duel. He asked Yuika about her opinion if she agreed to participate or not while she was confused. She gave it some thought and said that she would also participate in the duel, and he said that now everything is decided and told Ruka that if they won, she was not allowed to say anything on the matter anymore. She said that if they win, her sister must quit the academy, and while leaving, she told him that she wouldn't hold back, so they should be prepared to face reality. Later, they were at the rooftop, and she told him that she wanted to ask him for his help and told him that she wanted him to teach her more about magic. The protagonist thought he was worried and wondering why she suddenly called him on the rooftop. He told her that he was a lowly mage whose amount of magic power was 100 and asked her if she was sure to be taught by someone like him. She said she knew he was hiding his real power as he was much stronger than her and surely knew how to make her stronger. That's why he said he could win against her sister. He thought that people like her sister were the kind who desperately wanted to control everything, and that's why he suggested this so that she would get provoked and suggest a fight against him. She bowed in front of him and begged him to teach her the magic, so he agreed, and she asked him if he was sure. Then he told her that she must follow everything he said and she couldn't back out in midway, and she was glad and agreed. Kusanagi Minato thought that there was no way he could decline when she begged him like that, and besides, he also needed to prepare for what was going to happen from now on. So arising a mage might not be so bad. He told her that they will begin right away starting from today, but he wonders where should they practice, and she asked him if he wouldn't come to her place. Later, they were at her house, and he looked ahead and said that she had a big house. She told him that her father was a noble mage, so it was natural. She thought this was the first time she had invited a boy to her house and wondered if he found it strange for her to invite him to her, but she thought she didn't have any weird intentions. While she was still thinking, the protagonist told her to start the practice, but she didn't hear, so he called her by name. She was stunned and asked him why he called her by her given name, and he said that her sister also goes with the Maizuha, so people would not know who he was addressing if he did that. He asked her if she didn't like him calling her given name and if he should call her by a different, but she said no, as he could go with Yuika. Then he started the practice, and she told him to take care of her, but firstly, he wanted her to answer his few questions and asked her what exactly she knew about the magic power. She thought his question was easy and said that it was the energy inside their body needed to perform the magic. Then he asked her about the incantation, and she said it's the program, like a way to turn the magic power into magicraft automatically, so he asked her if it was possible to increase her magic power deliberately. She said it's impossible as the limit of one magical power amount is determined pre-birth, and will stop increasing once they reach a certain age. She laughed and felt proud because she was sure she answered all the questions perfectly, but he told her that all her answers were incorrect. She cried on hearing that and asked him what he meant, and he wondered who would have guessed that the current mages were so foolish and wondered what had happened in the last 50 years. He told her the magic power isn't just within their body and nature. Incantations are simply tools to back up their magic craft, and it's possible to increase their magic power intentionally. She said he was lying because if it had been true, it would have overturned the Magic Craft Academy, but he said it did not matter whether she believed him. He told her that he would teach her about 3 things that he just mentioned and told her to sit as he would channel magic power into her now, and he told her to inform him when she felt it. She asked him if he could feel the magic power, and he said that she couldn't get stronger if she couldn't feel it and instructed her to close her eyes as he would touch her now. Then he poured his energy into her body but realized that the energy wasn't sufficient, so he decided to pour more. But she could not feel such a strong energy. After he poured more energy into her body for some time, she said that she was feeling something as her back was getting hot, and he told her that what she felt now was a magic power perception. She realized what he meant by feeling the magic power, and he told her that she should remember how it felt. He told her that if she could feel it, then she could detect it and would be able to find the magic power in nature. He told her to make it her goal from now on, and she smirked and said that she was the second daughter of the Maizuha family so that she would master it in no time. He thought she could only sense it after he poured in that much magic power, and it seemed she didn't have the talent to be a mage. 1 week later, she cried because she could not do it. He thought it had been a week and she had been practicing diligently, but she was so slow at understanding. Even though she hadn't made much progress, it was almost time, and he told her he would pour magic power into her body again and put his hand on her back. He poured energy into her body, and after some time, he told her to open her eyes. She was stunned as she could see it and was pleased to see the magic power and wondered if that was what it looked like. She was mesmerized as she could see magic power and wondered if she could see Kusanagi's power too. She looked at him, but she could barely see his energy and wondered what the meaning of this was. The protagonist told her that she did her best, and she said that it was natural because it was her and told her that how she managed magic power perception. It was time to adjust the amount of magical power she had. He told her that if she could use 50% of her magic power, she could use it twice, But if she managed to adjust the magic power and use 20% of it in one attack, she could use it 5 times. He told her to use the magic craft with the appropriate amount of magic, discard all the fatalities, focus more on efficiency, and use her magic power up to its limit. After her magic power has depleted, the amount will increase after the recovery, so she should be able to maximize its use once. And then she would be able to maximize its use once she can sense magic power. He asked her if it was different from the basic teaching of the Magic Craft Academy, and she said that it was okay if she didn't believe him. But she said that she believed him and wouldn't doubt him anymore. He told her that they should move on to the next stage of their training, and he told her to move back a little as it was the practice battle. But she told him it was okay for her, because she also wanted to see his true power. She used the first level of Aqua Sorcery, and he made the barrier to block, and she was shocked because he blocked all of her magic craft. He told her that it was the first level no attribute magic barrier, and said that if she couldn't even destroy this, how did she plan on beating Ruka? She attacked him with ice bullets, and he instructed her to move as she used her magic craft to stop her. Movement means defeat when facing a mage. She used all of her power to attack and get drained and fell on the ground, saying she couldn't do it, and he told her that she was inefficiently using too much magic power. He told her that if she could adjust her magic power, she would no longer need any incantation and could use magic craft as long as she had magic power, and told her to watch him. He used the flames of fire blast using the magic craft in her way and attacked the model, which produced slight power, and then he showed her his way of magic attack, which was more significant and stronger than her. She observed that magic craft dispersed in her attack, and he said she was right and told her it was possible to perform magic craft even without incantation as long as she could adjust the magic power. She asked him if he meant she didn't need to chant, and he said yes and instructed her first to learn how to shorten her incantation. Once she could adjust her magic power, she wouldn't need any incantation. It would be advantageous in battle if she could shorten her chant, and then she no longer needs to waste her magic power on her incantation. She said he wanted to say, in other words, it would strengthen her magic craft, and he told her she was right and told her to begin again. She wondered so soon, and he told her that if she didn't do it now, then it would be meaningless otherwise. He told her to practice as her life depended on it, and she began crying and later fell to the ground. He told her that she was still alive, and that they would be doing this every day from now on, and he realized that she was not listening to him. At night, he went to Harajuku, surveyed the area to check for the demon, and realized that the monsters were also there. He realized they hadn't decreased in number despite the constant extermination and wondered what was happening on Earth. Then, he sensed the monster and looked behind. The monster was attacking the human, so he rushed there to help her and attacked the monster, then asked her if she was alright. Despite being terrified by the monster, she didn't want to lose the chance to capture the black mage, so she took his picture, and he rushed away. He was surprised by her suddenly taking his picture without his consent, and saying thanks for saving her. He wondered what was wrong with the people these days, so he decided to wear the mask next time to avoid such incidents. In the morning, he was at her house. She got exhausted after a few tries, and he thought there were a few days left before the duel, although she was progressively improving. But she is still lacking in all the fields compared to her sister and thinks that there is no way she would win if things continue like that, so he tells her that it is okay if she wants to give up. Yuika said that she was always compared to her sister and couldn't beat her in anything, and she had been forced to give up on many things. But the magic craft is the one thing she refused to give up on ever. He told her she would not win this way, and she told him to be stricter. H said he wouldn't hold back now, and she said that was more like what she wanted, so they started practicing. She was fully drained in the evening, so he carried her on his back. The next day, she attacked him, and he told her that she had passed because she was able to break his barrier. And she fell on the ground with joy because, at last, she succeeded. Then he told her that she had worked hard to achieve this. They were at the Magic Academy on the day of the magic duel, and he asked her if she was ready. And she said yes, and they were stunned to see the people standing before them. The press asked the Maizuwa Yuika to comment on the magic duel and asked if she had a conflict with her older sister. And she asked them what they were doing there. The press said that the sisters of the Maizuwa family were going to fight each other, so it is usual for them to get noisy. And the protagonist said that the battle between students shows just how vital the lineage of a noble mage family is. Later, they were in the stadium, where everyone was gathered to see the duel between the two sisters, and he looked ahead and asked her if she didn't think it was too much. She said it was rare for a magic duel to occur, and it felt more like an event. He looked at her. Then the commenter called the two participants and told them to come to the stage. She said yes but was nervous and unwell, so he told her to do her best. She looked at him and felt better, so she said yes, and she thought he was a mysterious person because his words resounded in her heart, and soon they were standing in front of each other. She asked him so she didn't run away. And Yuika said, of course, why would she run away? Ruka thought she was uncouth and asked her if she thought she could win against someone like her, but she was confident that she would win against her. She observed her strength and said that it seems like she made progress in past 2 weeks, while Yuika thought she is so strong as the difference between their magic power was so extensive, but she thought she wouldn't lose against her. Then the magical duel commences, and the commentator tells them to begin the fight. She feels as if she has shortened her chant, but she is still, and her sister is continuously moving. The protagonist thought continuously moving was the basis of battle, so he assumed that Ruka should also know the cause of a conflict between two mages. In comparison, Yuika was so nervous that she forgot to move in action and lost the advantage of speed and chanting. Ruka attacked her with first-level Aqua Sorcery, but she managed to counteract it and was surprised because she was getting stronger. Her sister was stunned that in just 2 weeks, she had become stronger than before. She was glad to hear that her sister praised her, but she asked her what she was so happy about, as it was a mere comparison, and clarified that she was not honoring her. She told her that now she would increase her magic level, and she used the second-level Water Blitz, which she could not tolerate, and fell back to the pavilion and was severely injured. Kusanagi Minato looked at her and thought Yuika's chance of winning was higher in enchanting speed, but he knew the other party was more substantial than her. Maizu Haruka came to them and said that he was a cruel guy and asked him if he would not help her as he protected her, but he said that there was no need for that, and she asked him what he meant by that. She was shocked to see her sister standing up and wondered how she could bear her level 2 magic attack and was still standing. Yuika said that she would not lose because the magical craft was the only thing she had, so even if she lost everything else, this was the only thing she wouldn't ever give up. She used all her magic power to attack her but was unable to hit her even once. She said she would surely win against her and would give up, but got exhausted and fell because her energy was depleted. The referee concluded that the contestant Yuika had used up all of her magic power, so the victory went to contestant Ruka. She was grieved because she could not defeat her. The protagonist goes to her and tries to calm her down and thinks that it was the battle of magic usage based on magical power adjustment, but she loses in terms of the amount of magic power. Her elder sister asked him if he now understood that she had no talent and said that he might have thought so too, and he said that it's true she has no talent, is clumsy, and barely progressing. She is also inefficient and gets even weaker during the real deal, but she is a hard worker as she diligently practices every single day like an idiot, and asks him if the failure resulted from her hard work. He said that it was confirmed that she lost, but he liked hard-working people like her and said she was his disciple, and he found it displeasing when Ruka spoke badly of her. Yuika started crying while her sister said he was being too cocky for someone with a magic power of 100, but he said the same guy with that much magical power would defeat her. She told him that he is good at spouting nonsense, so he did very well in that, and told him that she was not the one to be his opponent. Then Ryuji appeared and was excited as it was finally his turn. She told him to hurry up and finish this, and he said she didn't need to tell him this twice, while Kusanagi was holding Yuika and left her on the seats at the side and told her to pay attention to his battle. She looked at her wound because her body didn't hurt and her wounds were healing too, while the protagonist thought that although he said that he could defeat him with just a magic power amount of 100, there is no way he would win if he didn't go all out. But he decided to keep his magic power at 100 using only one attribute and will go with no incantation. He might have died because he didn't set the magic barrier if he had hit directly, but he thought it a thrilling situation. His opponent apologized to him as he wouldn't hold back for him, and he said that he would become the one who held back. Meanwhile, the students were cheering him and told him not to go all the way out as he should be next to him, and the protagonist measured his strength, which was 8,000 magic powers. He thought that usually it wouldn't be a big deal, but right Nichar only had a magic power amount of 100, so if he let his guard down, he would die. The second match was initiated, and Ryuji told him not to hold a grudge. He thought that with this one attack, he could find the truth about whether he had defeated those delinquents. While he was still wondering if he could withstand his full power, the protagonist attacked his head and said he was too slow. Everyone was shocked as the match ended so easily while his opponent was unconscious on the ground. The referee announced that the winner of the second match was contestant Kusanagi. Maizu Haruka was shocked as he made him lose consciousness with just one hit, and she didn't even hear him performing any incantation and wondered what trick he used. He told her that he had ended it quickly, just as she wished for, and Yuika was amazed and thought he was awesome as he defeated him. Ruka said that it seemed he was pretty good, and he said that he was better than her, but she thought he was still spouting nonsense and assessed her magic power, which was just 10,000, but he thought she was still stronger than Ryuji. The commentator said that an unexpected event happened in the second match, and the contestant Kusanaga's way of fighting has gathered much attention. So this match would decide who the winner if the third match commenced. He was shooting the bullet to hit on her head as this was the easiest and the most effective way to defeat her because he had low magic power, which meant he could use the low magic craft power too. She realized his technique, so instead of moving, she decided to defend herself. Then she attacked him but was shocked to see him as he was not slightly hurt. It doesn't seem to her that he is using magic, and she wonders what he is doing while the students wonder if he got hit just now but realize that he is not even wet and ask what's going on. Yuika was also shocked and wondered what technique he used as she was sure he had done something. Then her sister attacked him, and he dodged them all. Ruka realized that he was avoiding it without using any magic, and her younger sister realized that he could counteract a magic craft with another magic craft. Even if he had differences in power, he could still annihilate it. She thought it was common knowledge that anyone would get hurt if they didn't do this, and her sister thought that a level 2 technique meant a difference in speed and mass, so there would be no way of escaping unscathed. And she wondered if he had no fear. The protagonist wonders what she might be thinking and thinks it would be possible to avoid as long as he can sense and detect magic power. But a person needs some courage, too. She attacked him with the 3rd level Azure Splash and thought he wouldn't be able to avoid it, and the students were shocked to see that she was using such a high level, and said that it would be bad if he got hit directly. She laughed and said that he wouldn't be able to dodge this but was suddenly struck by his magical bullet, and he appeared. She was shocked and said there was no way for him to be fine after this attack and asked him how he managed to dodge it. Said that he used a magic drain capable of consuming magic craft, and he walked through the center of that magic. And when she looked behind, the center from where he walked to her was completely intact. She laughed at thinking that he passed through her magic and accepted her defeat, and the commenter announced his victory and said that no one would have expected this victory. Maizuwa Yuika rushed toward them and asked if they were okay. He told her that they were fine and that he had won, and she was contented with his victory. Her sister said that, as promised, she wouldn't say a thing anymore, and she was free to do as she liked, and he took a peaceful sigh. He said that Yuika's wound was very shallow and asked her if she might be holding back, unlike during their fight when she was shocked and unwilling to accept it. The protagonist told her she got much stronger within 2 weeks. She must have realized it, too, so she should stop being overprotective. Yuika said that she would get stronger so as not to make her worry, and she said that they were right. Then he felt a strange energy and looked at the sky and was stunned as it turned red. He thought it was an abnormal magic power and realized that the calamity had returned, and they were shockedly staring at the sky. Meanwhile, in the classroom, Tadano-kun and his friends were searching in the protagonist's bag as they had to find out now that they had lost so many people in the duel. His friend told him that Kusanagi had only books in his bag and said he was too diligent, but he insisted that he might have something otherwise. How could he use that magic? He looked out of the window and was shocked and wondered what the hell was that. Tadano asked him if he had found something but was startled to see the sky become red. He wondered what was happening, and then his friend told him it was a calamity, but they were unwilling to believe it as they thought there was no way there could be a calamity. The press was recording the sudden change in the color of the sky, and the students wondered what would happen. One of them said that it seemed like a calamity, but her friend thought there was no way this would be a calamity as it ended 50 years ago. The protagonist wonders why calamity is happening again and if it relates to what happened in Shinjuku. He remembered that the first calamity also began in Shinjuku and wondered if this was merely a coincidence while the beasts started appearing in the school, and the students were scared of them. The teacher told the students to calm down, then the protagonist released the magical bullets and killed them nearby. Then he announced using his magic to calm down because most of the students were terrified. They were startled to hear an anonymous voice suddenly. He told them that only weak monsters would come out during the opening of the calamity, so it should be fine as long as they handled this rationally. He told everyone to evacuate to the gymnasium and guided them to move in groups as it would be dangerous to move alone. He told them to evacuate immediately, and they asked him what he was planning to do. He said he would go and have the people in the school building. His teacher told him that he was too reckless as he was planning to go there alone, and Ryuji said that he would go there with him so there would be no problem now. But he was still a bit hesitant to allow him. Then he told him that he also has seen what he is capable of. The teacher agreed and told them not to force themselves. Ryuji asked the protagonist if there were no way he would die, and he said that he had already claimed that the beast wouldn't be much stronger at the opening. He told Yuika that he would be going now, and she told him to be careful, while Ryuji said he would go first as a senior. He thought his speed allowed him to run 100 meters within 10 seconds and wondered if Kusanagi-kun could keep up with him, but he was shocked to see his speed. The protagonist told him that he would go first and then leave in milliseconds, and he thought he had monstrous speed, but he thought that just speed is itself useless and decided to observe his true power closely and save everyone along the way, too. Kusanagi-kun used his magic power to analyze the mage inside the building and found out that there were 58 magic power users in the building, but he knew that there might be a human who didn't have magic power. To confirm this, he looked around the entire building. He saw the magic beast attacking a student, so he entered the room from the window, attacked the beast, and killed them. Then a beast appeared from behind, and he attacked it and killed it too. Ryuji saw that and asked him if he was alright while he killed all the monsters and looked at him. While leaving, he said he would entrust him with the student evacuation, but he told him to wait for him as it would be dangerous alone. He already left and thought he was way too fast. He wonders if he sees him as a burden, but he can't say anything because it is probably true. He looks at the dead bear and is stunned as he annihilates them all within a second and wonders who this guy is. The protagonist thought he could only defeat the monsters with the magical bullets if it were outside, but indoors, he might accidentally harm the students, so he had no choice but to attack them with low-grade magic ceaselessly. He killed the monsters in different rooms, and the students thanked him for saving their lives. He thought it would be a waste of time if he continuously brought the students to the gymnasium every time he saved them. On the other side, Ryuji told the students that he would kill the beast, so they should all evacuate. Then, the student pointed toward the sky, and he wondered what was wrong. When he looked up, he saw the students falling from the sky while protected by the magical barrier, and he wondered what Kusanagi was doing. He knew who he was and seemed good at caring for others, so he hoped he would be fine. While the protagonist was in the room, he sensed the monster attacking the student, and she was terrified, but it was approaching her from the stairs. When she reached the wall, she was extremely terrified and was shivering, and she requested that someone help her and save her from the monster. The protagonist killed the magic with his magic bullets, and the students realized that it was the same method used to save her during the physical class. Then, the protagonist appeared and asked her if she was hurt. She asked him if he was the one who saved her, and he said yes. Then she asked him if he was the one who saved her during class 2, and he told her that such a thing indeed happened. She thanked him for saving her life twice, but he told her that she shouldn't think much about it as it was nothing special. When Ryuji arrived, he asked who the next person needed saving, and the protagonist told her she would be saved if she followed him, and he left as he had to save the other people. On his way, he thought there were still so many people that needed to be saved, and there was no time to wait for the police to arrive, so he needed to hurry and save them. Meanwhile, a meeting was held regarding the calamity, and the Prime Minister told others that a calamity had occurred in the Kamui Magic Academy while the other people asked him why it occurred and if it occurred in their country. There had been no calamity since the last one that happened 50 years ago, and asked him what they should do. And he said that they were still contacting both the Beast Countermeasures Division of the Metropolitan Police Department and the Magic Nobles. He said that the Ground Self-Defense Force had also begun the preparation, but other people said that the only available mages in the self-defense force were the ones specialized in handling the disaster. No mage specializes in battling against the beast, and the Prime Minister said that he is also aware of this fact and thought that was the negative effect of living peacefully without facing any catastrophe. He thought that most of the military expenditure was allocated to the national defense of international affairs, so they could only leave the handling of the beasts to the police and magic nobles. He angrily smashes his hand on the table as the disaster from 50 years ago is happening again. But they don't have Ikigami Minato with them, who could save them from the disaster. Later, the two inspectors from the Beast Countermeasures Division of the Metropolitan Police Department were going toward the academy where the calamity had occurred. Sergeant Sanada Karin asked his fellow officer if there was a calamity in the academy, and he said that confirmed and there was no mistake regarding it. She said that they had been safe for the past 50 years and realized the peace was just temporary, but thought it was no problem. Inspector Shido Shaogo said that was why they were there, and she said that she would do her best and rush toward the academy. The reporter was reporting from the helicopter about the calamity happening in the Kamui Magic Academy. The reporter said that the sky had turned red and beasts were constantly appearing one after the other, and beasts were suddenly appearing inside the school area, so the students were currently taking refuge in the gymnasium. The teacher instructed the students that the magical beasts were their only opponents, so they could defeat them if they worked together. The reporters reported that the teachers and students were working hard, but so many beasts appeared that they couldn't leave the academy. The people watching the news were terrified as the Kamui Magic Academy was near there, so they thought it would be bad. Then the beast appeared behind them, and they decided to run to save their lives. Two watching the situation from the tower thought the situation was getting out of hand as the magic beast surrounded the Kamui Academy while the people were worried about watching the news. Kusanagi Minato realized that the monsters kept pouring in huge numbers, so it was almost time for the calamity to enter the second stage as the stronger beasts would appear as we progress through each stage. Moreover, the beasts will keep appearing no matter how many times they defeat them. If the boss is left undefeated, they will keep appearing. The boss reveals himself in the final stage, so he must hold until then, thinking it is bothersome. After saving a few students, he thought he had saved 20 of them while the rest were scattered everywhere, so saving them was already hard work, and he moved on to the next one. At the same time, Tadano-kun was attacked by the demon soldier, and he was trying to defeat them but thought there was no use as he couldn't launch any more attacks. So he gave up. His friends wonder why there is another demon soldier and say that's why he warns them not to do it. But Tadano says that Kusanagi could defeat it in just one hit, so he wonders why he can't. The protagonist said that it was because he was weak, and he defeated the demon soldier in one attack. Behind the wall appeared from the hole made in the wall, and he turned to leave. He was frustrated as it happened again that he got saved by him, and he told him to stop and asked him why he saved him again and if he was not annoyed at him, and if so, then why did he help him. He said that there was no particular reason why he saved him because he was capable of doing so, and he asked him if he saved him because he was capable of doing so and asked if that was all he had to say. Tadano told him not to mess with him as he was just a wimp who couldn't even use magic properly and asked him how he got so strong. The protagonist told him that Kusanagi Minato died in a traffic accident, and he was reborn. He got furious and asked him if people would get even more potent when they were at the death's door. He thought he should have been stronger than him when he got saved by someone like him, and the protagonist asks him if he thinks he is more robust. H told him that the strong don't oppress the weak and the weak don't oppress those weaker than them, and that he was consumed by a sense of superiority that fooled him into thinking he was strong. He told him that he couldn't even imagine fighting against him and asked him if he was right, and he walked through him and fell to the ground. He thought he knew he was running away from the fact that his power hadn't grown much since junior high school, so he vented all of his frustration onto those weaker than him. But he got saved by the Kusanagi, who was supposed to be the weakling, and he could not accept that truth. His friends talked about what they had been doing. In the end, they were saved by him and called Ju-chan, who was crying. On his way, the protagonist killed the magic beast and the demon soldier and burned it, and he realized that the demon soldiers were increasing in numbers. So it would make sense if the boss showed up soon and told the students sitting terrified in the corner that they should be at ease as it's all right now. Meanwhile, Ryuji was angry as so many monsters were attacking and pushing everything on him, so he attacked it. Then two magic beasts appeared behind the girl, and he shot them and killed them and told the students that he would protect everyone so they should rest assured and just follow him. And they were glad. He looked ahead and thought that although he told them he would protect them, there were too many beasts, and he wondered what to do. While he was profoundly indulging in thought, trying to figure out the solution, the protagonist suddenly appeared behind him and said that he would help him. He got scared and told him not to appear out of nowhere all of a sudden. The protagonist told him to escape as soon as he defeated the monsters, but Ryuji said it was impossible with their number, so he suggested he use a different route as that would be better. But he killed the monsters in a single attempt and cleared their way, and they were stunned. He asked him what he was doing as if they should hurry and go, and he said yes and told everyone to evacuate quickly. They rushed toward the gymnasium while he was killing the monsters on their way, and Ryuji thought he was incredible. When they were out of sight, he felt he should go back and search the school building. Meanwhile, outside the gymnasium, they were fighting the beast, and the teacher instructed them not to give up and continue to defeat them. Maizuwa Yuika gets exhausted by continuing to fight and is about to fall when her elder sister grabs her and tells her to go inside if she can't resist, as she is a nuisance. But she don't want to give up as she still has the stamina to fight and tells her sister that they don't have time to rest and start fighting again. Ryuji arrived and said that he rescued some students, and his teacher said that he did well and told him to take them inside. After leaving them, he came outside to fight with them. He asked Ruka about the situation, and she said they were barely holding them back while Yuika looked behind for the protagonist and asked him about his whereabouts. He told her that he was alive and kicking, and she was glad to hear it, and he said that he was a fantastic guy. If he had been here with them, they would have been able to overcome the calamity, and she agreed that if he had been there, they would have gotten rid of the monsters quickly. They heard a strange roar and were shocked, and the teacher instructed them to evacuate immediately. They were shocked to see so many demon soldiers. Ryuji shouted that they must escape as there were too many, and they ran away. They looked behind and saw the monsters getting killed by the police, and Inspector Shido Xiaogo instructed his colleagues that they must hurry and eliminate the beasts and prioritize civilian safety. The students were glad that they were saved as the police had arrived, and the inspector said that it would be fine since they were there so that they could evacuate the area according to their instructions. Maizuha Yuika noted they would fight alongside them, but he told her that the civilians should evacuate to the gymnasium, and she told him that they were not civilians. Her elder sister said they were mage, so the officer agreed and told them to back them up and attack from the rear. He thought that they were low in numbers, so these mages were a massive help to them, and he thought that the police were pathetic while they were fighting the beast. Sergeant Sanada Karin was healing the student and told her that it was alright. The protagonist saw the police cars, was relaxed on their arrival, and decided to leave the rest on them, but was worried about their irresponsibility in thinking that the police arrived before the self-defense troops. The calamity was a national-level disaster, so there was no way the state didn't have any preventive measures prepared. But he thought that it might be possible for this country to take the peace for granted, and he decided to do what he could and left to save the remaining students in the building. The reporter informed that the police arrived at the location, but the beasts were growing in number, and they wondered if the police alone would be enough to take care of them while the people of the nations were waiting for the noble mage to arrive. The students of another school listening to the news thought that the noble mages existed for a time like this and were waiting for their arrival. An old husband and wife said that they already paid the tax so the noble mage would be able to resolve the problem. His wife said it was true, and the reporter asked the noble mages to arrive hurriedly. Meanwhile, at the mage noble Fuka's head of household, Fuka Jin told his secretary to ignore the news and asked him if he was sure. Then the director said to him that the police were more than enough to handle that small-scale calamity. That was why there was no need for the mage nobles to get involved and leave when the man asked him where he was going and said that he was going to sleep, so he bowed and told him to rest well. At the same time, in Kamui Magic Academy, the situation was getting worse for the police officers, too, and the inspector asked his fellow if he could take care of the beasts near the entrance. He told him they were caught as there were too many of them, and the inspector thought that the beasts were appearing faster than they expected, so evacuating with the civilians in time was impossible. He thought the rear support was all the self-defense forces were obliged to do, but they didn't arrive. They could only rely on the mage noble but could not contact them. He said that the me noble existed for a time like this, but those useless people were not showing up. The students were fighting against the beasts, and the inspector thought that he had learned about this from the available information, and that this disaster was called calamity. He wonders if the people of the past used to handle things this way too, and what would happen if the boss appeared too. Then suddenly, a light appeared from the sky, and the monsters made their way, and the boss monster appeared. They were stunned, and the inspector was sweating from the anxiety, and thought it was impossible as the demon captain was the boss. Maizu Haruka believed that the boss was the beast, which rarely appeared in this era, and although it rarely appeared, only the mage nobles could win against them. Yuika was shivering because she was terrified and thought they needed magic higher than level 5. And no one there could use that level of spell. The boss monster threw the fire toward her. While still confused, her elder sister appeared before her and tried to attack the boss. She covered her sister and got hit by the demon captain's attack. She fell to the ground, and Yuika was stunned. She told her to run away, but she grabbed her sister, who was severely injured, and asked for help, but no one heard her as everyone was busy stopping them. They could not defeat the demon captain, and the police thought they would die as it was impossible to defeat them. Yuika was holding her sister and crying, then called Kusanai to save them. When the demon captain was getting closer, the protagonist appeared and apologized to her for being late and letting them wait. She was crying, looking at her sister, and told him about her health. He looked at her and said she was just unconscious, so she didn't need to worry about her. All the students were unconscious, so he enchanted the magic spell and was leaving when she called him, and he would go and defeat it, so she agreed. Then, the lights appeared from the ground around the injured students, and she was shocked as her sister's wounds were healing. All the students also recovered and gained consciousness. Sergeant Sanada Karan was surprised to see this magic and wondered if this was the third-level holy magic, the sacred heal, and asked who sued this sorcery as even she could not do it. She went to her senior and asked him if he was alright, and he told her that he was fine as he just ran out of his magic power. He asked her what was happening, but she was not sure besides his deteriorated condition. He wanted to protect the civilians, but she told him that it was too reckless as he might die. He told her that if they didn't fight, everyone would be killed, but she told him it was already impossible as all of their police officers were annihilated. He was frustrated because both the mage nobles and self-defense troops weren't showing up, and he realized that there was nothing they could do. The reporter was shocked as the police were annihilated and thought it was the end for them, while the viewers thought that the mage nobles were useless as they would all be killed. The public was worried as no one could fight against it and defeat the demon captain. The protagonist was approaching the demon captain, and the police officers were shocked to see him heading there alone and wondered if he wanted to die. They shouted and told him to get away from there. He was standing against so many monsters and said that the beast had been doing whatever he felt like, and the demon captain shouted to kill, and everyone was shocked, wondering what would happen to him now. There was an explosion because he attacked them and told the demon captain to shut up, but it got enraged and roared, and the beasts ganged up against him. The protagonist thought he went all out during the world's biggest calamity, but he must hold back this time to avoid involving the people around him. The protagonist blocked their attack, but the officers thought he might be killed but protected him from all the boundaries. He released the magic bullets and attacked the monsters. The officer was shocked and wondered what was happening, and who that student reported said that an anonymous student was fighting against the beast. Because they couldn't see his face, she told the cameraman to get closer to them. When they got closer, his camera got attacked by someone and broke. And Yuika thought that Kusanagi might be hiding his true strength now because she broke the camera. He might be able to fight without any distractions. While the protagonist was killing the beast, the students thought he was incredible and had the hope that they could be saved and cheered him up. Then they were surrounded by the magic beasts, but soon they were killed by his bullets. The officer said that although their companions were dead, they could still do something about it and decided to support him. He looked at them and thought that the police in the current era weren't half bad. He killed most of the beast, and the demon captain roared and used the magic. The officer was shocked because he was using the 6th level magic, which was on par with the mage nobles they knew now. So they couldn't do anything now. The flames everywhere, and everyone was worried and terrified while the officer was trying to protect the students. The students were worried, and the sergeant was covering the student and praying to God to protect these students while the inspector thought it impossible for that student to beat it no matter how strong he was, and there was no way he would win. Maizuha Yuika believed in his strength and thought he would surely win this, as this is possible if he and the protagonist looked at the flames created by the demon captain's 6th level magic. He realized that although it was huge, it was slow, which meant the boss monster was forcing himself to use the 6th level magic craft. He knew he couldn't win against him if he kept using 2nd level magic. Although he don't want to stand out, he don't have any other option, so he used the tremendous water attribute to attack it. Yuika was glad as she knew about it. He created the serpent with the water, and the officer wondered what kind of synthesis magic could create the huge water serpent. The water serpent ate the fire and was progressing toward the demon captain while he was shouting to kill and slaughter the human. His fire monster tried to attack them, but the protagonist was able to defeat it as his serpent ate the flames. The demon captain wonders why this happened, but then he is attacked by the water serpent and dies. The protagonist says he got attacked because he was weak and lacked training. The protagonist presumed it could do better than this, but the demon captain was weaker than he expected. Then the sky became clear, and he thought that the calamity had passed because he had defeated the boss, so they could be at ease now. The students wonder if they are safe now and if Kusanagi defeated the Dion captain and were very happy. The reporter and camera operator were crying out of joy because they made it as the boss was defeated. The sergeant was glad and told the student that it was safe now as the calamity had passed. And Inspector Shidu Xiaogo was shocked as the student couldn't defeat the captain. It was uncertain whether even the mage gnolls could have defeated it, and he wondered who he was. Then sat on the ground. It seemed to him that his knees had given out. The protagonist went to Yuika and her sister and told her that he had ended it, and she said that she believed in him and thanked him. Then he was stunned as many students gathered around him. They thanked him for saving them and said he was incredible. He told them he understood and requested them to step back. They were unwilling to let him, and he thought he ended up standing out just like in his past. He was worried about the future while she was watching this and smirked as he seemed annoyed. The news regarding the calamity that occurred at Kamui Magic Academy was announced that the calamity was safely put to stop. But the Academy announced that they would not be disclosing the information about the student who defeated the boss. There were no casualties, but several people had mild injuries. The students were watching the news about the catastrophe in front of him and said they were talking about him in the news. They thought it natural because he was their savior and asked him if he would get promoted to S class. And the female student thought it would be a hindrance for them as they wouldn't be able to talk to him casually while he was pissed off. One of the students touched his shoulder, asked him how he was so strong, and asked if he inherited the blood of mage nobility. Another student standing behind said he was growing conceited from being papered as no student was as strong as him. The students got angry and rushed toward him and said that it was true that he defeated the demon captain. And the girl also testified that and told him to stop teasing him out of frustration. But he said that it is weird no matter how they think about it, while the protagonist takes advantage of their quarrel, escapes the classroom, and is relieved of succeeding. Yuika asked him if he was having a hard time, and he told her not to tease him. She said he was the hero who protected everyone, so there was no help. He asked her if she also got promoted to the S class, and she said that it seemed as if it was the result of the battle and calamity. He asked why she did not seem happy, and she said that she was happy as he was certain someone was there too. While talking, he remembered about her sister. She told him that she was fine and they talked more often than before, so he was glad for her. And she was pleased too and thanked him as it was all because of him. And she was also glad that he was there. He hit her head, and she asked what that was for. He told her that thanking him once is enough, so she does need to keep saying it. Meanwhile, at the Prime Minister's office, the Prime Minister cut the call and said that each country was over with this teleconference. The man said that finding support for the next calamity would be hard, as they already have so much on their plates just taking measures against it. He asked that the media say that the student defeated the boss, and they told him that the scene was chaotic and that most of the police were knocked out, so it might be a misunderstanding. The Prime Minister told them that each country's leader was skeptical too, but that's understandable, and he instructed them to bring back the mage nobles as they needed to set up a measure in conference to prepare for the next calamity. Later, at the school rooftop, Ruka and Ryuji stood in front of the protagonist, and Yuika and Ruka asked the protagonist if she would like to ask him for something, and she requested him to accept her as his disciple. Both sisters were sitting together, and Ruka asked her younger sister if it seemed like the calamity was stopped by Kusanagi. She said that's right, as he defeated the demon captain boss by using the 4th level synthesis magic. Ruka was shocked that he used the 4th level synthesis magic, which was the magic that even the most high-class mages could not use. But she said it was true. She believed her and said there was no way her sister would lie. Yuika asked her why, and she believed she wouldn't lie. She said that was because she had always been an upright kid even since back. She was obedient and would never lie, and she was a gentle yet serious hard worker. She thought that someone with those qualities shouldn't be a talentless mage, but she realized she was too forceful. Maizuwa Yuika looked at her sister and said that she would be strong enough to put her elder sister at ease, so she should rest at ease, and she told her that she had grown up. Ruka thought that Kusanagi Minato's strength surpassed that of a student, and perhaps it was even higher than her father's, so she called her sister and asked her if she could help her with something. She thought that if things continued this way at most, she would end up as a high-class mage, so she needed the protagonist's help to become even stronger. She apologized to him for looking down and insulting him and said that she knew how selfish this request of her would be, but she would swallow her pride and ask this. She was going to ask him to make her his disciple, but he agreed without her requesting him. She was stunned and asked what he meant, so he said he would make her his disciple. She asked him why he agreed to help her, and he said that she was the weirdo as she was the one who asked for it. She said that's true, but she did so many awful things to him. He said he forgave her because she apologized, and he accepted her apology because she asked him to. That's all the reason behind this, and she was stunned. Ryuji asked to teach him, too, and he agreed, as there was no issue with teaching 1 or 2 more people. She told her sister that he was the kind of person Ryuji grabbed and thought he was a mysterious person. But the protagonist told him to let him go, but he asked if this much grip would be okay. Later, they were in the conference room with his teacher, and the police officer told them they were from the Beast Countermeasures Division of the Metropolitan Police Department, showed them their card, and introduced themselves. They bowed in front of him to show their gratitude and thanked him, as without his help, both the civilians and they would have been annihilated. He said they had thanked him repeatedly during the questioning, so he thought this was more than enough and asked them if they needed something else. They said that the investigation regarding the calamity was done, but something piqued their interest. He asked him if he awoke his mage abilities after getting involved in a traffic accident, and the people around him said the same thing, and there was no misunderstanding. But one thing was said: he seemed to have become a whole different person after the accident. His personality changed, and his magic became abnormally strong, which is strong enough to defeat a demon captain. Yuika gets furious and asks him what he is trying to say, and the officer says that he will change the question and asks him if he knows the Black Magician. They were shocked, and he asked about the Black Magician. The officer showed him his video ad and said he was a mage who had defeated the beasts. He helped the people under the cloak of the night, and the video got widely spread on the internet. He asked them if they hadn't seen Sergeant Sanada. Karin was stunned and thought that was it. Maizuwa Yuika asked what it had to do with him, and the officer said that they were similar in their status and age, and this Black Magician was said to be quite a considerable mage. There is barely anyone in that age range who could use that much magic, and the period where he began his activities was close to the day he got discharged. He said that it's illegal to use magic in the city without a permit or qualification if he is a student of this academy. Then they would leave it to the school's discretion to some extent. However, since it had gathered this much publicity, the police had no other option but to take action. Expulsion wouldn't be enough, but if he confessed, they would do everything they could to lessen his punishment. So he should answer with the utmost care. He asked him if he was the Black Magician, and he said he was not, and the officer smiled and said he was not him. Then that's good. While leaving, he thanked them for having them over, and on his way, the officer thought that he didn't even fluster. That was a lot of courage if he was the Black Magician, as he is nothing like a regular high schooler, and thought there might be something different about him. Sergeant was sure that he was the Black Magician, as both ambiances and voices were similar, and she wondered if his movements during the night were purely for saving people. She thought that she couldn't tell her senior about his real identity, and that this could be counted as a failure for a policeman. But he is the nice person who saved her. While he thought he should look further into his real identity, she thought she must hide his identity to save him. Later in the classroom, the teacher introduced them to the class, said they would join their second year's class from today. Adin told the students to get along well with them. Students come to him and ask if he defeated the demon captain, while the female student goes to Yuika and asks her how it feels to be from mage nobility, and the teacher tells the students to sit on their seats as the class begins. After the class ended, he thought he got barraged with questions during recess. This was exactly why he didn't want to stand out. Then someone called him and looked behind. The female student he had saved twice was standing behind him and was worried and asked him if she could have a bit of his time. Later, they were on the roof, and he wondered if there was a custom to ask people to the roof when they wanted to speak with them, while Yuika was also on the roof hiding behind the wall. She thought she could get some solo training, but they got here, and she wondered why Minato was on the roof and what he was doing there alone with the girl. She asked him if he remembered her, but he apologized because he didn't remember her. She told him that he had saved her during the calamity, and he remembered that. She said that at the combat lesson, she was also assaulted by monsters, and then somebody saved her using magic and said if she was right, he did magic. He remembered her clearly, and she thanked him for saving her twice. He told her she did not need to thank him because he did what he could. She told him that he was cool while Yuika was trying to hear their conversation, but she barely heard what they were talking about. Then, the student told the protagonist that she liked him. She requested him to go out with her. Yuika was stunned by her sudden confession, but he was calm, and the girl said that although she didn't have any good points, she would do her very best. She requested him to let her be his girlfriend, but he thanked her for liking him. Adin apologized as he did not have time to start dating someone as there was something he had to do. She thanked him for rejecting her upfront. Adin thought she could give up on him now. Adin left crying after she left. He told Yuika to stop hiding and come out. She looked at him and laughed. Adin said she thought she had her mana well, but he told her that her mana control was awful as it was practically spilling everywhere. He said this was the second time she was hiding. Adin listening to his conversation. Adin asked her if she was into voyeurism or something like that. She said that it happened by chance and it was not like she wanted to listen to them. She asked him why he rejected her as she was pretty cute, and he told her that he was not planning on dating anyone. Adin thought that he meant they were just too far apart in age despite physically being in the same school year. She asked him if he wouldn't go out with anyone. Adin, she wondered why she was so relieved to hear that he would not date anyone. He looked at her and told her to work harder on her mana control as she had not had enough practice. She said she knew already and thought she would work harder and become stronger until he finally acknowledged her. At night, he went on the round in the city to check for the demon. and he found out that the number of monsters had not decreased despite the calamity being over. He wondered if this was the sign that another calamity was on the way. Meanwhile, a criminal was chasing a girl, and she asked for help, and the criminal asked her if she thought somebody would be around at night. The protagonist appeared and told the criminal that someone grabbed his hand and was shocked. Then he punched him and attacked him with magic. He gets unconscious and realizes that he is an amateur mage, and criminal his close combat skills are incredibly crude, and he thinks he might not be used to fighting other mages. The girl thanked him for saving her and asked if he was the black mage, but he left while she told him to wait. Kusanagi thought that the black mage the students in Shudo mentioned as well and realized that he might be referring to him. But why has it become so popular? The next day, he was at the rooftop while having lunch, and he asked them about the black mage and told them that Shudo had mentioned earlier that an amateur mage acts at night or something. The people were gossiping about it too, so he was just wondering why, and they told him it was probably because it had become a popular topic on the internet. He asked them what the internet meant and wondered if it was just like the fishing net, and if they were bad with machines. He was shocked and thought he was crazy as he did not know about this at this age and day. They wonder if it is possible for someone not to know what the internet is and think that although they knew he was isolated from society, they didn't know his situation was this bad. They told him that the internet is an information network that spans the entire world, and people can find anything on it, so information spreads as fast as lightning. It also has pictures and video, so basically everything is there, and he can also look things up on his smartphone and ask if he has one. He took his smartphone and told him to try and open the app first. He successfully opened the browser and was very happy. They praised him and told him that now he could use the internet as well, and he said that it was much easier. Ruka asked him, and he promised that he would help them to train, so when they started training, he said they could start after school today. Since they taught him how to use the smartphone and everything, he will do his best to train them. But Yuika felt bad about this. After school, they were exhausted, and he asked if they would give up that early as they hadn't even warmed up yet, and told them to act as if their life depended on this. But they said they could still go on, so he shouldn't look down on them, and Ryuji said he would show him how stubborn he was. He liked their spirit and told them to come at him, and they rushed to attack. Meanwhile, near the Tokyo Tower, everything was destroyed, and the two men observing it thought it was unbelievable as it had looked normal a moment ago, and wondered what the hell was going on. And the demon captain and many monsters appeared there unexpectedly. After some time, they were exhausted. He asked them what was wrong with them and if they had already given up, but they said they hadn't given up yet and attacked him. But he blocked their attack and shot them with the magical bullets. Then Yuika attacked him from behind and asked if he was wide open and said he was not. She was shocked as he managed to dodge her attack and then shot at her head. He told them to have a break, and she was happy as they finally had time to rest. They were wiping their sweat and drinking water. Ryuji asked him if he was too strong, and Ruka said he was strong to the point where even she, the top student in the academy, couldn't fight. Yuika said he was not at the same level as other students, and she looked at him as he made the usual face look annoyed, and he told them that he almost died due to a traffic accident. He obtained this power when he regained consciousness. The reason is unknown, so he told them to stop asking this question. They said that his near-death experience triggered the awakening of his power, while Yuika thought that they were both gullible, and thought that the looks on his face said that he managed to deceive them. She thought he might have a reason for telling them the truth since he was trying so hard to hide it. She thought it would be better not to look into it any further. He looked at them and thought that all of them were gullible. On their way, Ryuji said that it was a great training session, and the protagonist said that he was adamant. He told him that it was because he trained himself, but he was hungry. He needed to go home and cook some food for his naughty siblings, and when he asked him if he made his food, Ryuji said yes. But the protagonist said that despite his appearance, he gets furious and asks him what he means by this. Aden asks him if he always eats outside, and he tells him that he mostly eats cup noodles. He was stunned and asked if that's all he ate. Kusanagi told him that the world had become convenient, but he told him that his body wouldn't hold if he continued with his unhealthy dietary habits. The protagonist asked him if he was his father, but he grabbed him and told him to come to his place as he would make some food for him. But he said no, he didn't listen to him and said it was decided, and he thought he was a forceful guy. They reached his home, and his siblings were stuck to him and hung with his arm. He apologized as he had to look after his siblings. He used the magic, and they were floating in the air. He said that he shouldn't worry about this, but he said that he would worry about it and called him an idiot, and told him not to use magic inside the room. He was angry and said that he never heard of someone using magic when playing while his sister was playing with his hair. He told her that he got scolded. Ryuji said that it was somewhat unexpected for him to be so good at looking after kids. He remembered when the kids were crying after the catastrophe. He said that kids are precious after all, and Ryuji said that he sounded like an old man just now, but he told him to shut up. The food was ready, and they were all gathered around the food and praying. He thanked him for the food, and they started eating it. The protagonist liked the food and wondered how it had been since he last had a home-cooked meal, as he had been fighting for so long that he neglected himself in the process. He asked him about his parents while wiping his sister's mouth and told him that he don't have a father and his mother is working till late. So he does the housework and babysitting in her stead and gets a part-time job in his free time. And the protagonist realizes he would be swamped. Ryuji said it was hard but hated it as he got more fired up the harder something was, and he showed his biceps and thought he had a nice muscle head. At night, he apologized for having him stay over due to his siblings' selfishness, but told him not to worry about it as it's not bad doing this occasionally. He thanked him but said that he did nothing to deserve his gratitude. But he said he thanked him because of Ruka. He said that she had become brighter than before, and he believed that it was all thanks to him, and the protagonist wondered if there was a romantic kind of thing. He asked him if he liked her and said there was no way he would like her as both of them are misfits, so they naturally stuck to each other, that is all, and he thinks it is similar to him. The next day went to school. Yuika asked him why they were late. He told them that Kusanagi wouldn't wake up as they could see he was still yawning. They asked him if they had a sleepover or were training, and the protagonist thought about how they were meeting up so naturally, but he didn't mind this. Then the police officers arrived and asked for a few minutes, and he wondered why they were back again. They apologized for repeatedly disturbing him, but they had an urgent matter. Officer Sanada Karin said that the beasts had started abnormally appearing in the surrounding Tokyo Tower, so it was possibly related to the calamity, so they had just come to ask for his cooperation. He said he was just a student, but they said he managed to prevent a calamity all by himself, so he is not suited to be categorized as a student. They said that it was too much for just them to handle this, but the protagonist asked if it's alright for a police officer to say that, and the officer said that it showed the extent of just how far they had been driven into a corner, so he requested him to work together with them. The protagonist said that if they were okay with it, he would lend them his power, and they were glad. He thought that although he wanted to avoid standing out, the situation wouldn't allow him to do. The officer told him that they would appropriately compensate him, so he should stay at ease as they would be the ones to contact the academy. Yuika and her sister also wanted to help them as they should be able to support them from the rear, and Ryuji also said they would lend them a helping hand. The officer said he was thankful for the thought, but it would be impossible for them to help. They said they were the academy's top-level students. The officer said they were merely the top within the academy, but they were talking about the level for the real battle and asked them if any of their power was on par with him. They were speechless, so the officer told them to head back to the academy and told the protagonist to get in the car. The protagonist called and said they should catch up with him, and they thought for a while, said they would, and went happily inside. Later, at the police headquarters head office, the commissioner said that hundreds of beasts were appearing near the Tokyo Tower, so they needed to set up a countermeasure before they caused harm to civilians. He said that they have asked for cooperation from the students who played an active role during the calamity that happened in the academy a few days ago. He requested Kusanagi to stand up. He stood up, and the officer wondered how is there a little brat in this kind of place. The other officer said that he was the one who defeated the boss during the calamity at the academy, but he spoke like rubbish too. Officer Sanada, who was hearing their conversation, thought they should keep quiet. Aden was ashamed as he was listening to this. The officer said that Kusanagi was the student who stopped the calamity at the academy. He had seen him in action closely, and there was barely anyone whose power was on the same level as his. For the first time in decades, he was involved in the calamity, so they believed cooperation with him was necessary. He told them to treat him as a fellow collaborator instead of a student. But the officers said he was just a mere student, so why was he acting all haughty in a place filled with professionals? The commissioner said that what they must do remains the same. Even with an outsider among them, they must immediately annihilate the beasts, and told everyone to return to their posts. After they left, Officer Shido rushed toward him and apologized for their behavior, but he said it was all right as his arrival might have put them in a bad mood, and he thought he was mature. He looked at Officer Sanada, who was shivering and crying. He asked her what she was doing, and she said that she was petrified to stop them. The protagonist told her not to mind it as he didn't care, and she thought he was a very nice person. Later, on their way to the Tokyo Tower, the protagonist asks the officer about their combat power, and he tells him that they have 80 mages, most of them are middle rank, and only a few are high rank. The protagonist thought the middle rank mages could use level 2 magic while the high level mages could use up to level 3. Officer Shido said that it might sound pathetic, but since he could use level 4 synthetic magic, he is their strongest means of combat power. The protagonist asked him about the combat plan, and he said that it would be a purely magic battle in outside combat. But he said it couldn't be called the combat plan. The protagonist thought there wouldn't be any problems with just the demon soldiers and magic beasts, but being on a higher plane than the demon captain has a higher intelligence, so they will need the countermeasure for that, as the straight-up battle can't be called the combat strategy. He asked the officer, and from what he had seen, there didn't seem to be any equipment. He said that was because there was no equipment capable of going against magic and beasts, and they often go to battle using easy-to-move outfits or suits. The protagonist asks him if there used to be anti-best equipment, and the officer says yes, it is rare now because there is barely any of it left, so only the mage noble has them. He wondered why there used to be so much equipment. So how is it possible that there are none of them? Aden thought, although he was aware of the decline of the magic and mages, but wondered what had happened during the past 50 years. They reached the Tokyo Tower, where an army of beasts was gathered. Kusanagi looked at them from the top of the building and thought that the calamity was not occurring. But their number was abnormal, and they wondered what was happening. The officers who talked badly about him were stunned to see many monsters and wondered if this was real. They said there were more than what was stated in the report. They told Officer Shido that they couldn't win against it as even a demon captain was there, so they had to speak for support from private organizations or the mage nobles. He told them they had asked for the backup but wouldn't get here right away as there had been an increase in beasts and illegal mages, so they already had enough on their plate. They asked him if they had no choice but to destroy them by themselves and supposed that it was like they were asking to get killed. The officer asked the protagonist if he could eradicate them, and he said yes. But the officers said he shouldn't joke around and shouldn't go ahead of himself as there was no way he could win against them. The main leader said there was something weird, and they wondered what it meant. The demon captain reached out toward the sky, and it suddenly turned red, and they were shocked as the calamity occurred. An urgent message was relayed from the police headquarters to every single post that the calamity had occurred across the country. They ordered the officers that saving the civilians should be of utmost priority, so they should immediately measure the calamity, as they will prioritize dealing with the calamity in the urban area so there wouldn't be any backup for other areas. They were shocked and wondered why the calamity was occurring again and what is the meaning of this. The protagonist thought that the catastrophe was something that happened naturally, but the beasts earlier seemed to be the cause of this one. He wonders if they learned how to call the calamity within the last 50 years, and the officers said it's impossible without any backup to win against them. Kusanagi told them that they should first reorganize as they were moving toward the city, and at this rate, they would cause harm to the civilians. The officers realized that there was no other way but for them to subjugate them, but it was practically the same as courting death. But he was shocked as the police had fallen this far back, and they got angry and asked him what he said and told him there was no way they could win against them as there were many of them. The protagonist jumped from the roof, said they could defeat them, and landed in the center of the beasts. They roared and rushed to attack him, and the officers told him to dash as he might be killed. But he used the 3rd level magic wind cutter. They were shocked. But Officer Shido was glad because he defeated most of the beasts. The demon soldiers roared and attacked him, but his magic barrier protected him. He realized that it was enough to block it and thought that because there were bystanders, it was a good idea to put up a wall just in case and attack the beasts. Officer Shido, who wondered at what level his strength was and was stunned as he could use several attributes as expected. It could be only he could end the calamity and order other officers to follow him. Officer Sanada said that she would back him up, too, and the other officers were trembling in fear. Then they said they couldn't shake and run away, so they decided to attack beside him and said not to fall behind him. They also attacked the beast, and the protagonist looked at them and thought that they unexpectedly seemed capable. Then the demon captain appeared, and they were worried as they were no match for him and presumed that only a legendary class mage could defeat it. Then, the protagonist attacked it and told the others that he would defeat the demon captain and leave the rest to them. He conquered it in mere seconds, and they were shocked to know that he had such potent magic. The officer told them that they must continue to defeat the beasts until the boss appear, and they will have Kusanagi defeat the demon captain and anything more substantial than it. The protagonist remembers that 60 years ago, the first calamity occurred and that casualties started to happen repeatedly, destroying the world. He thought that if what happened 60 years ago repeated itself, the catastrophe would spread worldwide. But he was relieved that he was there this time, too, so he wouldn't let them eradicate humanity. The demon soldier and the beasts were attacking her again. Then he arrived and protected her, and she looked at him and realized that it was the same as last time. And he helped her to stand and asked if she was all right. And she said yes and thanked him. He thought it was the same situation as before and wondered if she had found out. She asked why he had become the Black Mage and how he was so strong. But she thought he would hate it if she asked him those questions. She started crying and said to herself that the other party was the student, so she couldn't have any strange thoughts, then was startled by the sudden attack. But he saved her again. He told her it was dangerous there, and she apologized for the inconvenience. The protagonist told her to stay by his side because he thought she might not know how to use combat magic. She said yes and wondered if he was the student, as he seemed more like an adult. The officers were stunned and wondered why they couldn't stop trembling. And then the subspecies of demon captains appeared. Officer Shido was worried and wondered why the species higher than the demon captain was there, and the other officers thought it was impossible as they did not even know whether the mage noble should win against it. The protagonist was approaching the monster, and they told him to stop as he couldn't win against it no matter how strong he was, but he said to them that he could, and they were stunned. The officer was surprised as his trembling stopped, and Officer Sandana prayed for him to win, while Officer Shido thought he should have the strength of a mage noble to win against the demon captain subspecies. Then, he was confronting the subspecies of the demon captain, and the officer thought that he should show him his true power that he had been hiding till now. Officer Shido ordered them to keep using their full power until the boss was defeated, while the protagonist was confronting the subspecies of the demon captain, and it attacked him using the fire attribute. The officers thought that although the minister was using the first level, it was still so potent and felt it was an outrageous monster, while the protagonist removed the dust from his shirt. The beast was shocked as he was left unscathed after his attack and asked him what he was, and he said that he was just a student, and tremendous energy emerged from his body. The demon captain shouted to kill the more substantial human and used 6th level fire synthetic magic. And the officer was shocked and thought there was no way he could win against this. The protagonist thought that if he avoided this or used a direct magic attack, the allies would get engulfed and wonder what he should do. All the beasts were using the magic together to attack him, and they were shocked to see them working with each other, thinking it was impossible, and were worried about him. Officer Sandana told him to run. Kusanagi was calmed and used aquasynthetic magic to counteract the demon captain's subspecies attack, while his barrier protected him from the attack of the low-level monsters. The demon captain was stunned and looked as if he was fine even after their combined attack, and the protagonist told it that it was already over. Officer Shido wonders just what he is, while Officer Sandana wonders what just happened. And it doesn't make sense to the officer as such an unbelievable thing is unfolding right before his eyes. He thought that only a mage noble could use level 6 magic. It was an advanced technique on the same level as remote activation, and he was stunned as Kusanagi committed such a feat. The most surprising thing is that he used a second type of magic practically simultaneously, as a person can usually cast spells once at a time. There is considerable time needed before they could see a different time, but he used it almost simultaneously. A single type of magic is already powerful enough, and to use more than one at virtually the same time, he might be more robust than even a mage noble. Officer Shido thought that his intuition was not wrong, as he was the person he was looking for, as he was the second Ikikami Minato. The subspecies of the demon captain attacked him, and he said that it was too stuffy there, so he suggested moving somewhere else, and the monster used the level aerial magic and moved to another spot. The protagonist said that it seemed he could use aerial magic, and the beast asked if he spoke to move in order he could not receive any cooperation. He said that he didn't care about the beast's clumsy cooperation. Adin noted that he suggested that because he didn't need to hold back there, and the monster attacked him. But he managed to dodge, but got hit when the minister attacked him using magic, and there was an explosion. Then the protagonist fell on the ground, and the beast looked at him and thought he might have died, but he stood and cleaned the mess on himself. The demon captain was shocked and wondered how it could be possible. Then he rushed to him and said that, seeing as it was useless to use the magic, the best decision would be to resort to hand-to-hand combat. But the beast said it was futile. The protagonist attacked him and said it wouldn't be able to strike a blow against him, and the demon captain was thrown back by his single impact. It was stunned as there was no way a human's punch would work, and he shouted at him and asked what he was. He said if he thought he could only use magic, he would show him his technique. The protagonist covered himself with the magic energy, and the demon beast was stunned to see such a great magic power, while the officers down suddenly felt the chills from above. The protagonist closed his eyes, cast a spell, then opened it, and the subspecies of the demon captain said that even if he covered himself with magic energy, human attacks would be useless against them. Kusanagi rushed toward him to attack him and said he should give it a try, and he punched him. The beast was thrown back, and then he kicked it. The officer was shocked as he overwhelmed the demon captain in hand-to-hand combat, and wondered how this was possible as the human fists were useless against the beasts, and not only that, he also managed to harm it with his blow. The demon captain was injured and asked why and how a human's attack could work against him, and the protagonist said that regular attacks and weapons are useless against a beast, but it's different if one were to use a considerable amount of magic with it. He tells the demon that attacking while covering himself with charm is the fusion of magicraft and martial arts, so it's the magic martial arts. The monster is furious as the mere humans surpassed him and don't want to accept it, so he attacks him. But he dodged the attack and punched the demon in the chest so forcefully that it created a huge hole there and died and was thrown on the battleground where all the beasts were gathered. The sky became apparent, and the officers were shocked as that kid stopped the calamity, but Officer Shido instructed them not to let their guard down as they had to defeat the remaining beast. The protagonist thought it should be fine to leave the rest of the demon to the cops, but then the magic covering him faded away, and he thought that it had been a while since he had used magic martial arts, so he was pretty rusty. He got down on the ground, and the officers were gathered there. He thanked him for his hard work in defeating the calamitous boss and thanked him for his cooperation, and they all saluted him. After that day, calamities occurred worldwide, and thanks to the police and mage nobles' active participation, the catastrophe was reportedly stopped. The anxiety toward the accident, criticism towards the governments and police, and the expectation and disappointment toward the mages as the people's concern rose. Someone said they had the black mage with them. Some thought he would save them and defeat the beast, and some wondered who he was. Some people don't care whether he was an illegal mage, but they wanted him to save them. When he returned to the class, the students gathered around him and asked that they hear the words that he stopped another calamity. They thought he was incredible and asked him what kind of magic he used and if it was confirmed that the boss was the demon captain's subspecies, while he thought it was also bothersome. The teacher arrived and said that today their topic of discussion would be about the calamity that has occurred recently. She told them that although they were students but also mages at the same time, there was a possibility that they might be summoned, so they should remember always to be prepared. Although they had an experienced student, all the students looked at him. Sergeant Sanada Karin arrived, and the teacher told her to wait and wonder what was wrong with them, but she showed her card that she was a police officer and said that she had received permission from the headmaster. She asked Kusanagi if they would like to borrow his power again, and he thought that they don't worry much about their image and wondered if they don't have any honor. All the students were staring at him, and he was irritated and thought they should stop looking at him with those eyes. He took a sigh and asked her to explain the situation, and she told him that he should be at ease as he would receive both rewards and class credit. She said to him that in addition to calamity, the beasts are also appearing worldwide, so the illegal mages and the underground organizations are becoming more active, and they are significantly lacking in personnel. He asked if that's why they came to him again, and she apologized for asking for his help repeatedly, but no one was stronger than him. He told her to contact him using the phone next time. She apologized and said she would do that next time and get his contact info, and he asked her what they wanted him to do this time. She told him they liked to ask him to defeat the beasts appearing in Harajuku, and he understood the situation. Then she told him they would both be using the car, but he told her that it would be too late, and he rushed away, saying that he would go first, and the officers were stunned because he was too fast. Later, at Harajuku, the place was utterly destroyed, and the kids were terrified and shivering when his elder brother told him that it would be fine as he would protect him, and the beast was above his head. The kid grabbed his younger sibling's hand and ran away from the beast, but he fell on the ground. The beast reached near them and was about to eat them. Then the protagonist attacked the beast, and the kid was stunned. He got near them, too, and told them they were great because they held on well, and he gave the doll to the kid he lost when he fell while running. The kid becomes happy while leaving. He tells them that the officers will protect them so he will see them later, and they thank him for saving their life. Kusanagi Minato thought the battle in the city was more troublesome than the one back at the academy. Unlike the ruined Shibuya, there were many obstacles and people. Since the people were still running away, he couldn't use the magic bullets. Although he could differentiate between beast and human magic, he couldn't detect humans with no magic power, so the only way of saving them was patrolling the area. The officer commanded that they focus on defeating the beast as they will leave saving the civilians to the firefighters and the army. The officer saw the protagonist above the building and waved his hand, and the protagonist remembered him as he was from that time during the calamity and came down from the building. The officer asked him if he came there as the reinforcement and thought it helpful. The main lead asked him about the current situation, and he said that they had to save even half of the civilians. He said they were in such a situation that they could not reach the east side as there were no beasts present. So he said he would go and check that side of the city and kill the beast with the magic bullets. The officer told him that there had also been reports of illegal mages, so he should be careful. And he thought that although he said that, there was no use worrying about him. Another officer asked him who that youngster was as he annihilated those beasts instantly, and he said that perhaps he appeared solely to save them during the chaotic time. He used the 6th level burst stream and found it abnormal that the demon captain appeared outside the calamity as it was impossible even 50 years ago. The beasts were increasing in number and gradually getting stronger, which exceeded an amount that even he could barely handle. He moved his hand toward the civilians for help and thought if he didn't begin taking precautions, things might get out of hand, and the civilians were thankful to him for saving them. He thought he had several plans, but he was unsure which one to go with, so he used magic protection and saved many civilians. The officer was thankful to him as he was a great help to them because they managed to minimize the damage, but he said that it was all thanks to the police and firefighters as he was helping out. He thought he was incredible and apologized to him for what happened during the calamity because of their stupid pride, as they had been arrogant toward him. The protagonist said it's only natural for a student like him to act all proud, so they shouldn't dwell too much on it. They thought he was too mature for his age but thanked him for his help. Sergeant Sonata Karin also thanked him and apologized as they kept depending on him when he was just a student. But he was fine with this because he was the one who agreed to help out. Kusanagi said that he had been bothered by the fact that not only were beasts huge in number there, but they were also all extremely strong, and she agreed with him. He said they had a plan to counter the beasts and the calamity, and she told him that her senior Shido was also taking action. While they were talking, the kid whom he saved first arrived and thanked him for saving them earlier. He said that he was glad because they were safe, and the younger kid asked him if he was the great sage, but his brother apologized for bothering him and said that his brother liked the great sage. He looked at the doll and thought that if he was not mistaken, that was his doll, and he said yes, he is the great sage, and the kid became happy and said that he knew it. The protagonist remembered his past when a man came and asked him if he wanted to make his doll, and the man said that he had not just a doll but also photo cards and a key holder. He said there would be no way anyone would want such a thing, but the man said that the great sage is the support needed in everyone's heart, so these items are must-haves, especially for kids. He disagreed with him, but the man said he was wrong and that it would keep saving people even 100 years from now on, so he asked for permission to make it. He was carrying the kid and thought it was just like that man said. But the mere dolls don't have the power to save anybody as the great sage is also needed in this time. Meanwhile, at certain places in the capital, few men reported the Black Mage to the Underground Mage Guild Black Rebellion president. Kiryu Akuto asked if he was an illegal mage who was not part of the guild, which means that someone dared to go against him. He asked his man if that was what he meant, and he was sweating and said yes. He ordered them to find the real identity of the Black Mage, and he didn't mind if they used military force, but they had to find out about him. The Underground Mage Guild Black Rebellion executive Kabukicho branch manager Kagashuji asks him if he refuses to kill him. The leader says that after they torture him, they could kill him, and he gets excited and says he is looking forward to it. Maizu Haruka asked him the amount of magic power, and Yuika thought about this as she was also curious about his power, and thought it might be 100,000 or around 500,000. As she thought if it was Kusanagi, she could expect this. He told them that his power was 99,990,000, and they were stunned and don't believe him. Raiji said that even though he was powerful, much would be a bit too much. Ruka said that even Ikikami Minato was said to have about 1 million, and he asked her if his magic power was that. Yuika said that was why it was said that the highest limit of magic power. Asked him if he didn't know, as it's practically common sense to know the great sage power. He wondered if his magic power was really that, as he don't believe this, and decided to look at the internet, and was trying to figure out how to use it but completely forgot how to use the phone. He thought it was troublesome, so he decided to give up. Then he received a call from Inspector Shido, who answered the call and asked him what was wrong. He apologized for suddenly calling him and asked if he had some time, and he asked him what the matter was. The officer asked him if his friends were also with him, and he told him they were there too. He asked him if he could turn on the phone speaker. He gets confused as he does not know how to turn it on, and Yuika tells him that he had to press that button on the screen. The officer said that in response to the calamity and the number of monsters, they decided to establish a specialized anti-monster unit, which would be a special magic team, and they wanted to make him the captain of that unit, and they were surprised. Yuika was shocked at his selection to become the captain as if he were a mage. It was a title he shouldn't be dying to get, and he thought he wouldn't refuse this offer. But he refused, and she asked him why he was angry. He wondered why she was getting angry, and the officer said to let him explain this first, so he decided to hear him. The officer said that, first of all, there are too many problems, and the police can't handle them all also. The current situation is that they can't fight the monsters alone, and he thought that he might have understood it well. The protagonist wonders if that is because the level of mages is low, and asks him what happened to the mage nobles. He tells him that the head of the mage noble, Maizuha, Hamurai, and Kaichai, have yet to return from an overseas meeting. The only left mage noble was Fuka, but many things happened to him too. The protagonist remembered that he had never met Yuika's parents and asked her about them, and she said that she had been living away from home for quite some time. The officer told him that the members of the anti-monster unit are made up of more than a dozen police officers, and those selected from the academy include Maizuha Yuika, Maizuha Ruka, and Katsuragi Ryuji, as he recommended them. Officer Shido said that he would take care of all the troublesome things, such as clerical work and negotiation, so they all had to focus on cultivation and leading the mages. They will also receive rewards and school credits, so it's also advantageous for finding employment. He begged him to become the leader as he could only rely on them. The protagonist sighs and agrees to become the captain, and he is so happy that he asks for confirmation so loudly that his colleague loses his balance. Yuika also agreed to be part of the anti-monster team, and Ryuji also thought there was no reason for him to refuse it. Ruka also agreed as she didn't want to leave it all to Kusanagi. The protagonist thought that although he had some concerns, it would be fine since he got to train some mages. There was news regarding the Fuka Nibbles as the criticism was gathering towards that mage noble family compared to the active overseas mages. In addition to abandoning their duties due to the school disaster, this mage noble family was also slow to deal with the monster's subjugation. While Fuka's family head was watching the news, he thought they were stupid as they were mistaking mage nobles for the jacks of all trade. Someone knocked on the door and told him to come in. His servant arrived and said that he received a document from the Metropolitan Police Department, and he read the document. The document was to announce the establishment of a special magic team, and he thought that they were incompetent people who loved doing unnecessary things. But he thought that it would be enough to silence the public and told his servant to call his son. Meanwhile, at the special magic team joint briefing session, the protagonist looked at the officer and asked if this was the dozen officers he was talking about, but he apologized. He said they had candidates, but their applications weren't sent, so if he could produce results, he was sure that more requests would come in. He also guessed the same reason because if the student made the team captain, there was bound to be friction. Then the officer gave him the temporary mage badge. He said that it was external cooperation, but there was no doubt that all of them were public servants, so he should show them the badge when he needed it. But he clarified that it was handed over only if he belonged to a unit. He said that it's only temporary because they have not officially qualified as Mies yet, and told me that it would be the end of the student treatment as he is now the team captain. The protagonist thought it had been a while since he had stood in front of many people, and he introduced himself to them and said he would be the captain of the special magic team. He promised them that he would make all of them stronger than the heads of the mage nobles, and they were shocked at his claim as they didn't seem to believe him. He said that since they don't believe him, he would prove it and ask Officer Shido if there was a magic power measuring device in the station. He said yes, there is, and they went to the room where the measuring device was present. He told Ryuji and Ruka to measure their magic power, and they agreed to do that as they didn't mind it. They poured their energy into the device, and he was glad and thought previously Ruka's magic power was 10,000 and Ryuji's magic power was 8,000, but now their magic power was increased. Ruka was shocked as her magic power came out to be 30,000 while Ryuji's magic power was 28,000. The officers were shocked and thought it impossible as it was that of the highest grade mage class level of energy, and he told them that it's too early for them to surprise and told Yuika to check her magic power. Yuika went near the device and was anxious and wondering what she should do as she was worried that the gap between her and her sister was too wide and thought that although she had put in a lot of effort, she was just an ordinary person. She was so scared about the results, but she decided not to run away anymore, no matter what the result, so she put her hand on the device, poured her energy into it, and thought that she refused to deceive herself further about her abilities. The officers were shocked to see her magic power. She opened her eyes resistively, wondering what the result was, but it was 26,000. Officer Shidu was shocked and said that according to records, her magic power should have been around 2,000, so there is no way her magic power should have increased this much. The protagonist told him that it's possible to increase one's magic power as all they need is talent as well as the will to put in the effort and never give up. He put his hand on her head and said that he is proud of her as she did a great job while she was crying out of joy and her sister looked at her happily. The protagonist told them that they also did a great job and said that it was as expected from Ruka, but she said that if anyone is from the Maizuha family, this kind of thing is normal, and said that she don't need his words of praise. He put his hand on her head and said that he was still going to praise her tough as she did a great job, while Ryuji thought that he always thought that he was an out-of-this-world kind of guy as he didn't even fear at all. Yuika was worried that her sister would get angry at him, but she said that she was not a child, and he agreed. Ryuji was scared for a second about her reaction. Aden was glad because she didn't get angry. Kusanagi went to Ryuji to pat his head, but he was trying to dodge, saying he didn't want this. Ruka thought that it was the first time she had ever been patted on her head. Even her father had never done that kind of thing too. Then the So of the Fuka had arrived and said that he searched for them everywhere and asked why they weren't giving him the proper greeting. Officer Shidu said that he heard he wouldn't be coming today, so they didn't greet him, but he said he changed his mind. The officer said that he would introduce him to all and introduced him to everyone that he was Mr. Shu, a mage noble from the Fuka family, and he whispered in Kusanaga's ear. He told him that they had no choice but to ask for the approval of the mage noble, so he was forced to enlist all of them and apologized. The protagonist said that if he remembered correctly, he heard the Fuka family ignore the dispatch request when the school disaster occurred. The officer said they habitually maintain authority instead of responding to requests, because it's not something a mage noble usually does. Fukashu asked them if he heard these were Japan's leading magic units, then why were there just a bunch of students there? Officer Shidu introduced the protagonist and said he was the student who stopped the school disaster. Because of his achievement, he was appointed unit captain. He went to him and asked him if he was the one who stopped the calamity, as he was an ordinary person who was not even a mage noble. He put his foot on his and furiously asked how dare he stand above him as he is nothing, just a piece of trash, and told him not to try getting cocky despite being a kid. They were watching this and asked him what he was doing and told him to stay away from him, and Ryuji said that he would blow him away if he didn't stay away from him. He looked at them and said that ordinary people get emotional too easily, and he recognized the Maizuha sisters and thought that not all people gathered there were useless. He looked at them, smirked, and said he would be the unit's captain, but the officer told him that it had already been decided that Kusanagi would be the captain. He just had to fight for it and said that the unit that defeated the boss of the next calamity would earn the right to be the captain. The officer wanted to say something to him, but he didn't hear and said that it was settled and left. He apologized to the protagonist for being unable to stop him, but he said that it was fine as whatever he said would be useless, and he thought he had to win against him. Yuika said that she would not let that guy be the captain. Ryuji also didn't want to lose, and her sister didn't want to hold back against him, and he wondered why they were more frustrated than him. Later, at the Metropolitan Police ground, the protagonist wonders what he should do now. The police officer's magic power was about 10,000. Just as he thought, so he decides to discuss magic power first. He began the training session and said that firstly, he wanted to tell them the importance of magic, and he said that although magic power is the energy used to produce magic, it also has other uses, and he called Ryuji. He told him to hit him with all his strength while hitting him. He told him not to complain to him later but was unable to hit him, and he told them that it was the power of a magic barrier. He told them that if they had a huge amount of magic power, they could use it naturally, and if they had an outstanding amount of magic power, they could use it without even being conscious of it. It is called automatic magic. While Ryuji got exhausted after continuously punching him and said that it didn't work against him, the protagonist said that increasing the magic capacity is the most important aspect for mages. He told them to remember this, and he put his hand on the back of the officer, and they could see the energy, and they trained hard. Later, the protagonist thought that besides magic training, they would need some equipment, if possible. He wanted to get some anti-monster equipment, but from the look of Shidu's reaction, it seemed impossible to get it right away as he requested him to wait a bit longer for the equipment. He thought there wouldn't be any craftsmen nowadays, so he decided to make the equipment himself. Although he hadn't done it before, he was sure he could. He looked in the drawers and wondered if there was something that he could use, but he found a cheap ring. Since it was in good condition, he thought it might be important. He thought it could be used but wondered where he should go shopping. Then his phone rang. Mizu Haruka was calling. He answered the call and asked her what the matter was, but she was silent. She told him that he was the only one fit to be their captain, and he asked her if she was encouraging him, and she said that was her intention. He smirked and thought she was an awkward person and thought he should ask her for it. He said that if she was free tomorrow, he wanted her to go shopping with him. He told her that he didn't know where he should buy the accessories, and she asked him if Yuika and Ryuji were coming too. But he said no, as he thought there was no need to go in a large group. He asked her what she thought while she was still deciding. She agreed to go with him to the market, and he said that she was the lifesaver and asked where they should go first. She told him that they should go to the Harajuku, so he told her they would meet at the station around noon tomorrow. The call ended, and he thought that with this, he could buy the rings for all the members, so he decided to start crafting the anti-monster equipment with the ring he found earlier. He crafted the ring and thought it would work out now. Meanwhile, at her house, Yuika came to call her for dinner, but she did not reply and wondered if she was asleep. But that was unlike her, so she asked for her permission to come inside. Aden opened the door. She was stunned to see her choosing her outfit, and her sister looked at her and asked what the matter was. She apologized and told her that the dinner was ready, and Ruka told her she would be there soon. Yuka was stunned as this was the first time she saw her sister so excited, and she wondered if she was going out with someone and if it could be Kusanagi Minato. Later, he was waiting at Harajuku Station. Yuika was hiding behind the wall, and thought she had to conceal her magic so that he wouldn't notice her. She also could go too close to him, and he wondered why she was spying on them like this, and apologized them for this. Then Ruka arrived, and everyone was staring at her. She asked him if she had kept him waiting, but he said that he just got there, and the boys staring at her praised her beauty and were jealous of him, thinking he might be her boyfriend. She was shocked, thinking that they were on a date, and wondered what was happening. Ruka asked him what he was looking for, and he told her he wanted to buy the rings. She asked him if it was the gift, and he said it was like that, but he needed several rings. She was shocked and asked if he had several partners, and he said yes. She glared at him and said that Japan is not polygamous, but he already knew about it, and she suggested that if he is buying the bulk, then inexpensive ones are best, as she knew the right place. He left it on her. They looked for the rings while she was spying on them, and Ruka said it was surprisingly hard to find a sturdy, inexpensive, and not too fancy. The protagonist said that even when they found a nice ring, something seemed to be missing. They looked at the ring and realized it was pretty expensive, and Yuika wondered what they were talking about as they stood close to each other. The seller girl arrived at and asked what they were looking for. He said that if he was looking for a present for his girlfriend, she might give him a good deal, but he told her that she was not his girlfriend. Ruka clarified the misunderstanding before him. The sales girl was startled and apologized for her mistake, ran away, and told them to feel free to look around, and he was glad. After some time, they were at the restaurant, and he was exhausted from all the walking, especially in such a crowded place. It was hard for them to find what he was looking for, and he thought he should reconsider his criteria. She was looking at the coffee and said that she is not good at expressing affection, that he knows her, how her personality is, and that he understands her. She said she couldn't interact well with her sister because she caused her distress, so she told him he should go shopping with her and decided to leave. But he said it was not true, as she had looked up the location of the stores beforehand and thought hard about which one to choose. Even though he was shopping for himself, she took it seriously as if it were her trip, so he wanted her to know that she was a great help to him, and she looked at him gladly. Yuika thought she had never seen her sister's face like that. Aden wondered what she was doing there, so she turned to go back home. He was glad to find a decent ring, but she was shocked as he bought 5 of them and told her he needed one for each member and was contented. She told him that they would be thrilled to receive a gift he picked for them thoughtfully. He told her that it was for the unit's equipment and, of course, they would be happy, and she realized for whom he was buying these and thanked her as she helped him a lot. But she told him not to mention it, as being helpful was enough for him. He said he should repay her somehow, but she declined as there was no need for this. He brought out the ring and told her to give her hand to him while she wondered what he was doing, and he put the ring on her finger. He winked his eye at and said that this was the first special ring he had made, so he told her to take good care of it. Then she quickly turned, and while he was trying to stop her, she left. He wanted to explain to her about the anti-monster equipment but decided to do it later after getting a little farther from him. She looked at the ring, put it close to her, and crushed it. The next day at the training ground, he announced that he would hand out the equipment, so he told them to take it each. After everyone took the ring, the officer discovered a magic reaction and realized this was anti-monster equipment. He told them they were right, as the anti-monster equipment is imbued with wind magic, so if they infused them with the magic power, they could utilize it up to level 1 wind magic. Officer Shido was shocked and asked him where he got this, and he told him that he made them. The officer thought that the craftsmen capable of creating anti-monster equipment were almost non-existent now, but he created them too easily, so he told him that he never ceases to amaze him. Yuika looked at her and wondered what about her ring, and she saw a ring in her hand that she had never seen worn before and wondered if it was from her date. She was surprised and thought about what happened after she left. The protagonist told them they lack swift transportation as they can't always rely on the cars and won't be fast enough. And the officer thought it was true that they were always late because of it. Kusanagi told them that with this anti-monster equipment, anyone could use the wind magic spell Aerial that would significantly reduce their travel time. He told them never to forget that it was the basic spell and its magic power was low and not meant for attacking, and suggested they try it themselves. The officer tried it but could not maintain the balance. The protagonist told them that Aerial involves flying and acceleration, so they should start by visualizing themselves jumping. Yuika could do so. He appreciated her, and she said that she had been training in magic manipulation, so this much was nothing for her. She looked at him and then turned around from the guilt of spying on them while he wondered what was wrong with her. He said that there was something he wanted to ask her and asked if she was familiar with Ikigami Minato. And she said, of course, as he is the person she admired the most. He asked her how strong he was, and she told him that his magic power level was about 1,000,000 and he could use a wide range of spells, and he died fighting against the demon god during the Great Calamity. He asked her what happened to the mages after his death, and she said that no mage was left among them. Their noble ancestors contributed significantly to the revival, and the Maizuha family also played a huge role. She said that no data or documentation about the magic was left at that time, so they started building up magic studies from scratch again. The protagonist remembered that the death rate of mages was quite high but thought there should have been a lot of books left as he stored them at various places in preparation for the future. But the knowledge of modern magic is scarce and full of errors, and the magic power level of mages is also too low, and wonder if this all occurred by chance or if someone else did it purposefully. She asked him if he was alright and he said yes, he was fine, but she told him to tell her if something was wrong as she might not be that reliable. But he told her that her feelings were enough and thanked her as she was a big help for him. He thought that she might not spread what he said to her, but there is also the matter of the black mage, so considering the possibility of getting her involved, he decided not to bring it up casually. If she knew that he was her much admired Ikigami Minato, then she might faint, and she thought that he couldn't tell her because she is unreliable, but if she got stronger, then he might trust her, so she wanted to keep doing her best. 1 week later, he told everyone to brace themselves and then told them to fire. Sanada fired using level 2 Holy Magic Hall Crest. Shido was using level 3 Lighting Magic Lighting Blaz. Ryuji was using level 4 Earth Magic Stone Rain. And Maizuha sisters were using the level 4 Water Magic Waterfall. He was glad that as everyone's magic increased, Sanada could use offensive magic, as she couldn't even cast a single spell before. But what intrigues him the most is the Maizuha sisters, as their compatibility is outstanding as they are sisters. Both made a cavity of equal size, and Yuika remembers her past when she could not defeat her sister, and becomes so glad. Kusanagi appreciated everyone's effort but told them not to get complacent just because their levels have increased, as their level doesn't indicate the strength of their magic. He told Ruka to use a level 4 spell on him, and she used the level 4 magic to attack him while he was using the level 1 wood spear, and attacked her. They were stunned as the level 1 spell neutralized the level 4 spell. He told them their level increases the limit of magic power they could infuse, but it doesn't mean a higher level of magic is always stronger. Even with the level magic, if they infuse it with maximum magic power, they could beat level 4 spells, but the attribute also matters as water is weak to earth. He told them not to get trapped by the idea of levels, as they should understand the magic power and master the spells. If they did, they would become stronger. They should always remember that they also have their companions, so if they combine their power, they will become even stronger, and they said yes as they understood his instruction. Fukushu arrived and said that they might be having a tough time being plebs, and the officer asked him what had brought him here. He said that since the calamity wasn't coming, he was dreadfully bored, so he came there. The officer told him that if he was not training, He should exterminate some monsters, but he didn't want to do that as it was too much trouble for him, so he wanted the police to handle this. They were also annoyed when he said that he wished the calamity would arrive already, and the sky turned red again. Yuika was stunned, and Fukushu was glad to see the calamity. He tells them that the squad that defeats the boss first gets the right to be the squad leader, and tells the protagonist that the game begins. They were frustrated and said they would never lose against someone like him, but he told them to keep saying that later, and he left. Yuika thought it unfair, but the protagonist said they would work too. He told them not to forget to put on their hand-free and headsets, and they left. They were excited as this was their first fight since they formed the squad, but Kusanagi told them not to let their guards down and said yes. Fukushu was going there using aerial magic and was faster than the car. He looked at it and thought it was too slow, making him yawn. Ryuji was stunned and said they were too quick, and Yuika wondered how he could be too fast with that body. The protagonist thought that their opponents were skilled in wind magic, so it would be tough for his teammates to catch up with them. He decided to overtake them alone, but it would defeat the purpose of being in a squad, and he thought that if the citizens were not affected, then they should rush. Fuka looked at them and thought they were losers as he wondered what kind of special magic squad is this that can't even keep up with him. Yuika was angry, though she couldn't hear what he was saying. She knew he was mocking them, and they reached where the calamity occurred. He saw the monster and became sure that it was a calamity, and instructed his guards to slaughter them. They killed the beast, and the lady came asking him for help, and he told his guards to keep killing the monster as they kept coming. He killed the monster Adin and attacked the civilian Kusanagi, who protected them with the barrier and asked him what he was doing. They were trembling, and Fukushu wondered what was going on as he could not move his body. Yuika reached the civilians and asked them if they were okay. She gets furious, asks him what he is doing, and warns him not to drag ordinary people in this while they are relaxed as they can move their bodies again. Wonders if the protagonist did something to them but don't want to believe this. He told her that it was their fault for getting in the way of a magic noble, and she wondered what that was, but he left and said that he would take down the boss, so they should focus on protecting the commoners. The protagonist thought it would be easy to incapacitate Fuka, but that would make it seem like he was running from the battle. But he thought it might be the perfect opportunity. He said that he would protect the citizens, so they should focus on exterminating the monsters, and Officer Shido asked him if he could handle him on his own as he could have a hard time protecting everyone. The protagonist reminded him that he is the head of the special monster squad, and he felt stupid for asking him this. Yuika told them that they could always rely on him, so they should take down the monsters themselves. Adin were enthusiastic about defeating them. He told them to go and win for them, and they left and were fighting the monsters. Yuika used level 3 Azure Splash and defeated the demon soldier. She thought she was scared and couldn't do anything before, but now she could beat them. Adin was glad as she became more robust. The protagonist was checking the monsters in the area and felt many of the magic energies as both the allies and beasts have mixed in, and he realized that so many civilians failed to escape so that the rescue wouldn't be easy for others, but it's easy for him, so he left to save them. Meanwhile, Fukushu and his guards were fighting the beasts, and the anti-monster unit was also fighting against them. Ruka told them not to let their guard down, and Ryuji said they should get in the formation. Yuika also thought they should take them down together. Then she felt the strange magic energy. She looked around and found a monster coming towards her, and she realized that the boss Shu rushed toward him, saying that it was his prey so he would show them some absolute level 4 magic. His men told him that his opponent was the demon boss so that he could defeat him with a grade 4 spell. But he was confident that he could not as hardly any humans had fought demons, so how would they know? He said that he was a magic noble, so it was natural that he would win, and he used level 4 wind magic temple to kill the boss. The demon boss was using the level 4 fire magic flare, which overpowered his magic, so his magic became invincible, and he runs away and tells his companions to retreat. The protagonist appeared and was going to attack the boss, but his friends already attacked the boss, and he thought it was not bad. Fukushu was glad that he was saved, and Yuika asked him why he involved the citizens, but he stood up and said that it was their fault for not running away, and that if they were going to slow down a magic noble, they'd be better off dead, and she gets so frustrated so she slapped him. She said that he had no pride as he was someone who belonged to a mage noble while he was holding his cheek. She wondered how dare she slap him as he was a mage noble, but she ignored him and told them to leave him behind as they had to defeat the rest of the demon. But he was angry on her for ignoring him. The protagonist leaves the civilians to the rescuer, looks at them, and is glad they collected themselves quickly as they made quite a scene in front of their enemy. He left to save the remaining survivors who needed his help but also decided to keep an eye on the boss. Later, his man told him there was no way they could win against the demons, so they should retreat. He was angry but thought that he agreed that the demons were too strong even for someone like him. It might be tough to take them all down. He got an idea and told his men that they should let the anti-monster unit wear down the demons, and then they would swoop in to finish them off. His men agreed and were pleased and thought he was as always brilliant, but he said it natural and instructed them to lay low and wait. Meanwhile, the demon boss appeared, who had such a strong power, and she wondered if they could defeat it but did not want to think about losing, so she decided to win. Ryuji attacked first, and the other followed his lead and attacked it too. He wondered if they had defeated it, but the demon boss was without a scratch. They were worried that it didn't work, and Ruka said they needed a level 4 spell or an appropriate amount of magic power, but the boss attacked them, and she told Ryuji to dodge the attack. Yuika realized that this one was more powerful than the previous one and was twice as strong as her magic because the difference in their power was too intense. They couldn't win like that, and she wondered what she should do. Kusanagi realized that they were having a hard time, so he advised them to work together. She said that they were already doing this but told her that they should combine their power in the truest sense, and the key lies within her and Ruka. She asked him what he meant by this, but he said they should figure it out themselves. She looked behind and was surprised as the fire and her sister attacked and protected her. She told her that the protagonist's words surely held some meaning, so they needed to think about this together. And Yuika thought that it was just like how her sister said that his words always led them. She understood what she should do and told them that the demon magic was so powerful, but their casting time was long, so she suggested they clear the smaller enemies while avoiding the demon magic. She told Shidu and others to attack from the east while they would attack from the west and told them that she would give them a signal when the demon magic was coming. The demon boss was casting the spell to attack them, and she started counting and told them to dodge, and they rushed in their direction. The protagonist was surprised that Yuika started taking command as he was expecting Ruka or Ryuji to step up. But she has a knack for reading the people and thought that she might just be cut out for this. She thought their magic level and power were insufficient, so how could they win? So she tried to remember what he told them. She remembered that he told them to use the thing that weakens their power and thought she might have misunderstood him. She was unsure if such a ridiculous method would work, but her common sense was shattered long ago because it was a do-or-die situation. She requested everyone to lend her their power while Fukushu looked at them, planning something and wondering what they were trying to do. Officer Shidu asked her if she was sure they could do this, but she said that she don't know about it, but they don't have any other leads, and her sister believed in her. Ryuji guessed that they just had to grit their teeth and go for it, and Officer Sanada said that if it didn't work, they would do something else while the demon boss was using the level 5 fire magic blaring pillar, and attacked them. Mr. Shu thought they were incompetent fools, but his men told him to look there. He looked at them and was stunned as they managed to dodge the monster attack. And Officer Sanada was using the level 3 holy magic sacred healing that healed them. The protagonist realized that was their plan because it was hard for them to fully dodge a level 5 spell, so Sanada's healing part was the smart move. He looked at the Maizuha sisters, who combined their magic powers to attack the best and was pleased that the solution, if each power was weak, was exactly what a grand magic spell is. Their magic power combined to become the level 6 grand water magic bus stream, which injured the demon boss as he spit the blood, while others never expected that the result would be a level 6 spell. They were surprised as the demon was still alive while Fukushu told his men that it was their time to deal with the finishing blow. But he was stunned as he was bound by something. He wonders what this is as his strength was slowly losing his body, and he became weak while the protagonist was glad as the problem was resolved. They were watching the demon boss to see its next move but were surprised as it stopped moving and was vanishing, and they realized that it must have been on the brink of death. The sky became clear as they beat the boss, and the calamity stopped, thanks to the Maizuha sisters and others' efforts. They walked a bit, and then fell on the ground, and Ryuji asked them if they were all right. Ruka said that her magic was exhausted while Yuika could not move another inch, but they were contented as they did it and won against the demon boss. Later, they were back at the station, and he applauded everyone as they did great work. And because of this, they stopped the calamity. It was their first formal mission, yet they all showed their worth. He could already tell that they would keep getting stronger, and he pointed out Yuika as her growth had been exceptional while she asked if he was talking about her. He told her that her instruction was on point and noticing the grand magic was impressive and asked her if she already knew about this, but she said that she didn't know about it and came to know that was called the grand magic. He was stunned and asked her how she pulled it out if she didn't know, and she said that it was all thanks to his hint that he gave her. The rest was intuition, and he thought she might be more extraordinary than he initially thought. He said she did incredibly well as they succeeded on the spot, and their harmony as sisters also played a significant role. He looked at the time as it was already time for the news to begin, so he turned on the TV. And the commissioner was telling the reporter the reason for creating the Special Magic Team, SMT. He told them that was to strengthen their response to the growing number of demons and the calamity. And one of the reporters asked him if the unit leader was the student who stopped the calamity at the academy. Officer Shido said he would answer this question, introduced himself as the proxy representing the SMT leader, and told them that the squad leader was indeed the student, as they had surmised. They were shocked as they thought it impossible and wondered how a minor could be the squad leader, but he told them he possessed a power surpassing a magic noble. During the calamity at the academy, the mage noble did come to help, leaving the police and citizens in a dire situation. He appeared and saved all of them. He is convinced that he is the savior who holds this era as no one else could be trusted with the leadership role. And the protagonist wishes that he wouldn't make such a big deal. The reporter told the officer that it was a problematic statement as he was forming the squads of mages but overlooking mage nobles as this could strip them of their role. But the mage was able to respond to the calamity specifically. The Fuka clan has a notorious reputation. Even though some Ka heads are abroad, not responding to the calamity was still negligent of them. The commissioner said the police force placed great importance on the mage nobles and clarified that creating the special magic team was not meant to undermine them. Fuka forcefully entered the room, but the officer told him to halt. He came inside and said that the current leader of the squad was utterly incompetent as a magic noble. He deserved to be the leader. He said that completely disregarding him and holding the press conference was completely rude, and he made it sad that it was what he said. The officer asked him why he was there as he lost the challenge, but his men asked what challenges he was talking about, and he said that he didn't remember making such a promise. He whispered that his words as a mage noble were absolute, so they should listen to him as they were mere peasants, and the reporter raised her hand and wanted to ask him a question. He asked her if she had a question for him as the new squad leader and told her to ask the reporter. He said that they received the information that he didn't help the citizens during the recent calamity, and instead involved them in the fight and asked if this was true. He dramatically acted and said that no way happened, and the reporter next to him said that they also received the same information and showed him the videos and images they received. And he was speechless. They wonder if the mage nobles do those things as they should protect the citizens, but exposing them to danger is unacceptable, so they say such actions cannot be tolerated. Fuka gets enraged and tells him to shut up, saying that it is their way, as if they were getting in the way of mage nobles and that they are peasants, so they should keep their mouths shut. The officer said that everyone might have noticed their behavior by now, and that the current mage nobles are corrupt, so they need heroes who will protect the people. People who will fight selflessly like their squad leader said that they don't need magic nobles who don't protect the citizens. They looked at him furiously, and he became embarrassed while leaving. He said that he would pay for this as it would make him regret it. And the protagonist was contented as Shido did at this time. Yuika told everyone to see this post as someone posted the video about the calamity that was everywhere. And the girl who was also there during the cataclysm was crying in the video, and she said that mage nobles were getting most of the bashing, especially the Fuka. Kusanagi thought that the internet was the scary thing as things could spread so easily, and she was shocked. He got worried and asked her what the matter was, and she said that their face was completely caught on the camera, too. He was worried because hiding his identity was impossible now, and he thought that if he didn't stand out enough, he thought that some things would happen. 1 week later, in meeting room 3, he asked them the meaning of magic energy but wondered why there were so many people. Officer Shido said that for some reason, it became easier to get the permission of the higher, and the number of volunteers suddenly increased too, and they thought it all thanks to the press conference and the information on the internet. He apologized to him as he ran amok during the press conference and promised to make it for him. He thought he wanted to train the mages, but he didn't want to stand out. Yuika told him to give it up and strengthen their resolve as the world can't take their eyes off him. But he was bothered and irritated by this as he didn't want to attract any more attention than this. Meanwhile, a man was tied to the chair, and he asked him again, put the knife to his throat, and asked him to tell him everything he knew about the Black Mage. The abducted man said that he had already told him everything, that he was a young man who could cast crazy magic. But he did believe him and put the knife on his thigh. He was sure there was something else about it, but the man told him to stop doing this as it hurt, and he remembered that the police were making their rounds at the Magic Academy to find the Black Mage. That's why there are also rumors that he might be a student, and he says that he don't know anything. Kageshuji also thought that he did not seem to know much about this and was disappointed. The man asked him if he would release him now, and he said, of course, he would, but from the life grasp, cut is a threat. His blood drifted through his clothes, and he hated this as it was filthy. He thought about the student and was amazed as the young man's agonizing screams sounded terrific, and he told the Black Mage to wait for him as he was soon going to find him. Later, he was at Shinjuku as a Black Mage and killed the monster. He heard some sound, so he looked behind and saw a few men coming. So he left while the guys were making a video and showed the audience the dead monster. He thought that it might be the work of the Black Mage, and the protagonist thought that he figured the hype around the Black Mage would have cooled off by now. Yet they were still searching for him even in these quiet residential areas, and the patrols had also increased as they seemed to be dealing with monsters and disasters more efficiently. He realized he might not need the Black Mage anymore. While removing his mask, he saw a man beating the other and telling him to pay the 10 million yen he owed him. The men told him that if he couldn't pay, he should sell his organ, but the men shouted that he only borrowed 200,000 yen, and the men used magic to threaten him and said that it was interesting so that he would teach his body a lesson. The protagonist appeared there and made the barrier, so the man ran away, and he thought he was the interfering brat and wondered how dare he. He asked him if he thought he was some hero as he looked like he needed a taste of pain to learn. But he beat them, and their face got swollen, and they were crying. The men said they wouldn't resist anymore. The protagonist realizes that the police still aren't dealing with the illegal magic users, while the men wonder if he is a black man and say that there are rumors that the underground syndicates were searching for him and realize that they might find out that they were lying on their turf. The protagonist heard their conversation and asked them about the underground organization, but they said they knew nothing about that organization and requested him to let them go as they wouldn't tell anyone about him. He asked them how much they knew about the organization and told them that if they talked, he might let them go. The men smiled and told him that the Black Rebellion is an underground organization of mages who have kept out of the public eyes, and they were involved in all kinds of crimes. The other men said that whether it's the gang or mafia, they are always behind them, and they also have a connection in the media and politics and seem to do whatever they please. They told him there is always a branch nearby in Kabukicho, and they were hoping to get a foot in. He knocked them out and left and thought Sanada mentioned something about illegal mage activity and the Black Rebellions. He thought that dealing with the monsters and disasters should be left to the Academy Kusanagi Minato, as the Black Mage should clean up the underworld. And he looked from the top and thought it was time for him to take down the Kabukishio branch. Meanwhile, at the Kabukishio, people were gathered outside the fancy cabaret club where two girls were standing as a model, and the man was glad as the price to be with them was 8,000 yen for 60 minutes, and it was half for the first set. The main lead thought that the modern entertainment districts sure are live and blinding, and he could sense magic everywhere but couldn't tell which one belonged to the organization. He decided to start by arresting some guys doing questionable things around there. He saw two guys looking inside the envelope and asked the guy next to him if this was the right stuff, and he said that this would make him trip balls. He asked the protagonist, who was constantly staring at him, what he was looking at and asked him if he wanted to get killed. He beat them up and realized that they didn't know anything about the organization. He reported this to the police and moved on. He asked some other men who seemed strange to him, and they told him that the organization members were gathering in the west and asked him if he would let him go now as he gave him the information. He punched him and rushed there and hoped what he told him should be accurate at the very least. Meanwhile, at the Bot Western, where the girl entered and sat near the counter, the man asked him what he could get for her, and she asked him if he had any information. The man asked what kind of information she wanted, and she asked about the Black Rebellion's hideout. He told her that she was wrong and should ask a different question. She was stunned, and he said she should be asking what would happen to her next. The men looked at her as they heard someone sniffing around their business, but they didn't expect it to be such a beauty. She was worried and realized that she was fed with the false information that they were attacking her. She guided their fellow to grab her alive while counter-attacking them and decided to escape but got hit by them and fell on the ground. They came close to her and reached out and said that they don't mind a tough woman and were glad to imagine a girl like her with them. And she apologized to her brother in her mind as she couldn't do anything. While they were trying to touch her, the black man appeared, and she looked at him, but he went straight to the counter and asked if the members of the underground organizations were there. The men from that organization came to him and asked him if he was out of his mind and if he even understood his situation, and told him to go home and stay with his mother. He punched him and threw him back so forcefully that his teeth broke, and he remembered his mother, and they were shocked to see that he was so powerful. The girl realized he was not an ordinary person, as an average person couldn't send someone flying like that, and thought it would be magic. But she didn't see him casting anything and wondered who he was. The protagonist realized his intent didn't mislead him and said a pile of low-level mages was gathered there. He thought they were scum as they were ganging up against a woman and called them Black Rebellion thugs who were rotten to the core, and they decided to kill him. They thought he was just a single man, so if they ganged up on him, there was no way they could lose. But he attacked them earlier than them, while she thought that no matter how strong he was, the numbers had an advantage against him indoors. She felt that he didn't look like he could cast a high-level spell, so the magic was out of the question as he didn't stand a chance to win. She told him to run, but he dodged the attack and attacked them. She was stunned as he beat all of them and moved so quickly that she couldn't even see him and wondered what kind of magic he used. He went to the last man, asked him who he was, and told him that he was back to the man who would eradicate the Black Rebellion. And he beat him and went to the lady. She thought that he had taken everyone in an instant and thought he was an elite or a legendary mage. When she looked at him closely, she realized that he had such a striking eye and he looked like a high schooler to her. He said that she didn't seem injured and she said that he is right, and he went to the counter while she followed him. He asked the man hiding at the counter about the organization, but he said that he couldn't as they would kill him if he did. He punched the table and split it into halves. He told him that it was his last chance, so he should tell him about the organization, and he said that he talked about it and requested him not to cut him in half. He said to him that the organization's base is in Tokyo, with branches in places beyond Kabukicho. According to what he heard, the head of the Kabukicho branch is the fundamental piece of work, and the leader is the mage with influence in the underworld. There are even rumors that he is manipulating Japan from behind the scenes, and the protagonist asks him about the whereabouts of the race leader, but he says that he don't know about this. They don't tell about them as they are just low-level guys and give them all the crap jobs, and he thinks he is back to square one as the man don't know where the leader is. He decided to hunt down more illegal mages to get the information, so he left. But the girl told him to stop and thanked him for saving her life as she couldn't imagine what would have happened if he had not been there. He told her not to worry as he just happened to be passing by, and he said that if a person knew it was dangerous but still got involved, they only had themselves to blame. She thought he was pretty harsh, and he said he was difficult, but toward the adults. She asked him if he was searching for the Black Rebellion branch. Aden asked him what he was planning to do once he found out. He said he would destroy it, and she knew he was severe and was undoubtedly dead on obliterating the Black Rebellions. She was confident that he was powerful but thought he couldn't do it alone. Neither could she, so she asked him what he thought about them joining forces, and he wondered with her. She said that she is a detective and has more access to information and connections than him, but she does have the strength, and she thought that he was more potent than the rumors said. If she could work with him, maybe she should also achieve her goal. He asked her if he was offering her information in exchange for his strength, and she said that it didn't sound like an ideal partnership and moved to reach his hand toward him and asked him to join forces with her while he was still pondering whether to join her. He thought that although he needed the information, he wondered if he could trust them and thought that if things went sideways, he could always cut ties, so he agreed to work with her, and the matter was settled. The detective told him that she was Leona, and he said he was a black mage, but she thought it was a mouthful and asked him if he didn't have a short name. He told her that he don't have a short term, so she should call him whatever she likes. She asked his opinion about the name Chrono, and he was okay with this name. He asked her why they were attacking her, and she told him that she was looking for the Black Rebellion hideout. He said that she was careless, but she didn't need his opinions about what she should do, and he asked her if she knew how to protect herself. She said she knew her weaknesses but had no choice because nobody dared to stand against the Black Rebellions as rogue mages as they pleased in the city, and the police were too tied up with the calamity. He remembered the words of Sanad as she told him that after the catastrophe, the monsters kept appearing, so the situation was dire with the severe lack of workforce. Aden he thought that she had a genuine reason. She told him that her brother had been attacked by rogue mages ever since her parents died a few years ago, and she had been taking care of him. She was working like mad to provide for him, so he must have felt alone, but he never complained even once. One day, a burglar broke into their house, and her brother witnessed this, so they attacked him. He asked her if her brother was injured, and she said he was not severely hurt but had not regained consciousness yet. He thought he was in a coma, so not even the sacred magic would heal that, and she told him that the doctors said there was no telling when he might wake up, and her brother was just 9 years old. She said that the perpetrators were Black Rebellion lackeys. They had been arrested, but that was not enough. He asked her if she wanted revenge, but she said that she wished to correct the things to prevent more people from going through this. She don't have the power, but he can stand against the Black Rebellions and asks him if he can. It seems to him that she is not lying, and he wonders if she shared her story with him to prevent him from betraying her. He thinks that she was the tough person, but he hates the desperate types, and he told her that if she proves him to be helpful then he could defeat them. She showed him her diary and told him not to underestimate the detective information network as she had located several potential hideouts, but they had so many of them. She said that they could be Yakuza or the Mafia, which is why she was proceeding carefully. But he told her to give him all the locations of their hideout, and she wondered what he would do. He said to her that he would storm in, but she thought it too reckless as no matter how strong he was, that would be like walking to their death, but he assured her that he wouldn't die as he is the Black Mage. She agreed but wanted to accompany him, but he said that he would die, but she did care about it. He asked her about her brother. She said that he would get the life insurance money if she died. Kusanagi thought about the past when everyone died due to destruction, and money didn't mean that money was worthless compared to the family, so he told her not to say that she was okay with dying. Leona said that strong people like him would never know how weak people like him would feel to live righteously only to be oppressed by those scums and unable to fight them even when beaten. She asked him what they did wrong to deserve this. She was crying, and he asked her what she was doing and told her to give him the location of the hideout as they were going to give them a beating, so she wiped her tears and said, of course. She told him that it was quite a walk, but he said that they wouldn't have to walk. He went to her and grabbed her and instructed them to hold him tightly and stay there, but she wondered what he meant. Meanwhile, at one of the branches of the Black Rebellious, the men were busy doing their chores, and the man near the window was staring outside continuously, so his fellow asked him what was wrong. But the protagonist broke the window and entered by kicking at his face. The man was surprised while looking around at their hideout, but she was out of her senses as she thought she would die. The man holding the sword asked who they were, and they asked him if he knew where he was, and the protagonist commented that the Yakuza hadn't changed. Their boss came to him and asked who he was, and he said he was the Black Mage. The man asked him if he lost his mind and instructed his men to kill them. He told her to stay close to him as it was dangerous, and the man attacked him with the sword, but he was stunned as his sword broke in half and wondered what was happening. Then their men shot them, but his magic barrier protected them, and they realized that the GN and blades weren't working on them. They thought he was a monster, and the boss approached him, and he asked him if he was the boss there. He asked him if this group was connected to the Black Rebellions, but he was agitated and told him that he wouldn't be able to get out of there alive, and that he was underestimating the Yakuza like that. Knowing their bullets wouldn't affect them, he thought they were just a bunch of stubbornness, and she asked him what to expect from them as they were Yakuza but wondered why they were unharmed. He realized there were no mages, so he guessed that they weren't related to them. He decided to get over with them quickly, but they told him that he was the one whose life would be over soon. They were rushing to attack, but he subdued them with one kick, and they were unconscious. She was stunned and quickly got over with this place, but the protagonist said that it seemed like they drew black, so she decided to move to the next location. She thought he was strong, realized the true strength of the Black Mage, and thought he might also be able to bring down the Black Rebellions. He lifted her, and she said, "Don't tell her that they are going to leave." But he told her that they were leaving and jumped from the building. She was so scared and requested him to go through the sky. They entered another building through the window while she tried to get back to her senses, but he beat the men there and bowed in front of him. He asked her why they always attacked them and if he thought that Yakuza was a bunch of idiots. She told him that they were the sharpest tools in the shred, and he thought they had heard them. She asked him if they could stop entering from the window they were ambushing them, and she also had enough of her experience of heights. He said that he thought doing it was fine since they were Yakuza, and she wondered what kind of logic is, so he agreed to do it by the book this time. At the next gang hideout, he went inside through the window. Instead, he knocked on the door, and the bald men came out and asked how he was. He asked him about the Black Rebellious but said that they didn't know them and closed the door. He smiled and kicked the door open. The man asked him if this was the kind of raid and asked from which clan they were from, but he said that they just wanted to know about Black Rebellions. He rushed to punch him, and the protagonist told him to learn to listen when someone was talking. He punched him so powerfully that his head got embedded in the wall, and his men were stunned. He was searching for their boss and wondered where he was. Then a man named Ushiro arrived and said that he was the boss and asked him what brought him here. The protagonist asked him if the clan was related to the Black Rebellious, and the man from behind grabbed the sword to attack him and said that he shouldn't go around asking such disrespectful questions and cause him. Ushiro told his men to shut up as this was enough and told him not to lay a finger on him as he was not someone their clan could handle, and answered his question that they are not related to trash organizations like Black Rebellions as this clan is all about honor. Kusanagi asked him if he knew where their hide was, and the boss asked him if he would leave after he answered his question, and he gave him his words. Later, they were sitting, and they offered him the tea. The protagonist wondered how things turned out this way, and the boss once again introduced him formally. The protagonist said that he was Chrono, the Black Mage, and the detective also introduced herself. He looked at the map and said that the hideout of the Black Rebellions was as far as he knew and said that's all he knew, but he don't have any other location. And he thought that it was suggested the detective suggested hideout candidates. He thought that if they searched thoroughly, they might eventually find the right hideout, and thought she was more reliable than he thought. The protagonist asks the clan's boss if he can reveal all that as if he is not in the same industry. He said that they are not, as they are the enemy force, and that they are not as low as to harm the ordinary people. And the protagonist said that they are also respectable people. He said he wouldn't call the people who raid the Yakuza office respectable as they have principles, too, and told him not to lump him with trash. The protagonist is amazed and finds it interesting that someone like him still exists today, even if he is a Yakuza, and he says that since they got what they came for, they will leave as they promised. Ushiro asked him if he was planning to pick a fight with the Black Rebels and told him there were rumors that he was connected with some influential folks in this country, so fighting and defeating them wouldn't be easy. The protagonist said that he had already faced plenty of the enemy like that, and he carried her, jumped out of the window, and left, but he did not want to travel like that again because she was scared of the heights. Ushiro said that it is not common to see a courageous guy like him these days, and he thought that if it was him, he might have a shot at wiping the Black Rebellions. Meanwhile, some gangsters were meeting at the warehouse with the Black Rebellions and exchanging guns with each other. The man asked about the quality of the firearms and paid him. So the deal was settled, and the mafia boss thought the value was good. He said that Japan is a fantastic country as there is no other country that is so kind to criminals. And the man told him that this place is filled with peace-addled folks, so it's the best country. And they laughed. Then, the protagonist enters the building, and they are stunned by him and wonder what is going on and who this guy is while he thinks he has finally found the Black Rebellions. He looked at them and wondered how many mages were there and realized that all of them were magic users while half of the mafia men were magic users. Leona hid behind the container ad and started recording this. The Black Rebellious guy was furious and asked him who he was. He said that the villains always begin with this line while he wondered what he meant. The protagonist told him that he was the Black Mage who came there to wipe out the Black Rebellions, and they were surprised and then laughed, thinking he might not be able to subdue them as he's just a kid. They wondered what he could do alone, but he used fire magic to attack them, injuring many of their men, and he said he would like to take them down. They thought he had some guts and ordered his men to fire and kill him, but their magic could not scratch him. The protagonist thought that a person could only use level 2 magic indoors, as any level would destroy the warehouse. So he decided to use the compatibility spells, but their numbers were a pain for him to handle. They were stunned as their attack wasn't working on him, and the bullets were also not hitting him, and they wondered what was happening. The mafia boss asks him if he is unharmed after that many attacks, and he wonders how he would know this as he has never seen magic like this, and the protagonist thinks that it is not even magic. Still, their panic is noteworthy. The mafia boss asks him if they still have the thing they brought, and the Black Rebellious man says yes. They tell the protagonist to enjoy his confidence while he can, whoever he is. They seem to perk up, and the man picked up the grenade and was wearing the mask. He realized what this was, so he told Leona to run outside. She rushed out, then the man threw the grenade at him, and he used the magic on it, but it already released the poison gas, and they thought he was dumbass as he couldn't even resist the poison. They were laughing, considering that the game was over when the dust started disappearing. They went to him to see whether he was dead and what he looked like as they couldn't wait for it. They were looking at the ground but saw his foot and looked up and were shocked as he was still alive. They wondered how this was possible as the magic barriers and shields couldn't block the poison gas. The protagonist said that the gas is gas after all, so if he circulates the air with the wind magic, it is not a threat, and tells them that the poison can't defeat a superior mage like him. They called for backup, but nobody was picking up their call, and the protagonist told him they wouldn't pick up his call as he had already taken care of them and all the hideouts outside the Kabukicho. So they just left and told them to prepare themselves. They were trembling because of the fear, and he beat them and thought that all Black Rebellions in Kabukicho were finished, so he decided to call Leona. He heard some sound and looked behind, wondering who there was while Kaga Shuji was putting the knife on her neck and asked him if he did all that himself. He was impressed by his magic power and wanted to negotiate with him while threatening him using Leona. The distance between them was very far, so Kusanagi Minato thought he couldn't make it in time if he used the magic combat technique, except if there was a gap. He decided to immediately activate his first level spell and make him drop his knife, but Shuji told him not to try to do anything reckless unless he wanted to see her dead. He thought that he could see his magic power and realized that there are still some mages who could perceive it in modern times, and he looked at his magic power and realized it was 40,000. He realized that he was a high-level mage and still considered the possibility that he might be restraining his magic power. She apologized to him as she followed him unreasonably, but he told her not to worry as he would save her. Shuji told him not to dare to ignore his presence and asked him if he understood what kind of situation he was in. He said that he was the god of this place, so if he dared to do anything reckless, he would kill him. He understood, so told him that he wouldn't do anything. And he smiled and said that it was good and introduced himself and apologized for his late introduction. He told him that he was the head of the Black Rebellion Kabukicho branch and that his boss ordered him to investigate the Black Mage. He instructed him to befriend him if possible, but that was not possible, and then he refused to eliminate him. He told him that he tortured people involved with the Black Mage and was finally about to find the information, realizing that he was just a scam who aimed to destroy the branch and slightly pierced her neck. He looked at the blood, apologized for getting too emotional, and said it was unlike him as killing the hostage would be meaningless. Still, he liked her blood. He thinks that the blood is surely beautiful when he is the one who is observing the blood. The protagonist asks him about the terms of the negotiation, and he apologizes as he forgot that part. He said that the terms were simple and told him that he would be torturing him from now on. After that, he would kill him and be allowed to refuse and run away. But if he did, this woman would die. So he asked him about his opinion on whether he would choose between him and the woman, and the protagonist said he would accept the torture. He moved her slightly away and said that he had a self-sacrificing spirit and thought he was wonderful, while the protagonist thought that any attack wouldn't work on him, so torturing him wouldn't mean anything. Kaga Shuji told him to restrain his enormous magic power energy because there would be no meaning if he had the magic barrier, and she was stunned to learn about the magic barrier. She realized that must be why he could block any attacks and was worried about him as if he restrained it, and then he might get injured. The protagonist thought he knew about his magic barrier, assumed that he must have seen it from the battle just now, and thought he was careless. He restrained his magic barrier and asked him if he was satisfied, but he attacked him while trying to dodge it, so Shuji told him don't try to move as he wouldn't kill him right away, and would torture him by singing his first level magic spell. He requested him to stop but said that he wouldn't stop when he was having that much fun, and the protagonist fell on the ground. She was worried about him and thought this was all her fault. She had already decided to eradicate them even if it killed her, and Shuji laughed as he pitied him as he thought that was his end and thanked him for this pleasant time he had given him and bid farewell to him. She was trying to get the knife the man was holding and thought she would let him die like this because he was her only hope. But he threw her away and said that he could see right through her and told her that if she hadn't been here, he wouldn't have lost, and said that a great man like him had died because of a single small fry who didn't even W her place. He went to her, stabbed her, and said it was the fitting end for a stupid woman like her as she would die there peacefully. But the protagonist appeared and punched him, saying that the one who was pitiful here was him. She asked him how he was alright as he restrained his magic barrier, and he told her it was simple. Just before his magic could hit his body, he put up a tiny magic barrier so he wouldn't find out. She told him that this was not simple because only he could do such tricks, and he told her not to worry as she was safe now, and she thanked God because he was fine. Shuji asked her what she meant by this, and the protagonist thought that though he used the magic combat technique that emphasized speed, he didn't faint and thought he was a powerful mage. He asks how dare he attack him and thinks that even torture is lukewarm for him, so he decides to burn him to death, and the protagonist thinks that his magic power is increasing. Just as he thought he was hiding his power, Shuji said he would burn him into ashes, so he used a level 4 spell fire lighting compound magic fire spark to attack them. She got scared to see the 4th level magic and thought they wouldn't be able to block it as the magic surrounded them. But the protagonist made the magic barrier. She was stunned as the 1st level magic spell completely blocked a 4th level spell, and wondered how this was possible. She wondered what sense of relief she was feeling and if she was assuming that he had surely done something about this. She wondered who he was. Shuji laughed and said that he had already assumed he would be strong enough that his magic wouldn't work against him. but he also had a trick up to his sleeve. Leona wonders why there is no sign of the magic wearing off, as his magic should have disappeared by now, and the protagonist tells her that this is sustainable magic. She wondered what sustainable magic is, and he told her that usually, a mage cannot use multiple spells simultaneously, and when the magic is cast, it wears off after a while and eventually disappears. However, if a person reuses his magic at the same time as when the magic disappears, it will continue, and the same principle applies to when a person takes flight using the wind magic, as without doing this, they wouldn't be able to fly. She furiously thanked him for the explanation and told him there was no time for that as the barrier was about to disappear, but she was shocked as it wasn't disappearing. He told her that if he could explain it, then it meant he knew how to do it, and that was why he could use the sustainable magic too. It was too easy to do it, but she thought there was no way to do it easily. Shuji was shocked at and thought he couldn't use sustainable magic. Leona told him that his magic wouldn't work on him, so he suggested he give up while he still had the chance. He thought she might be kidding with him and said that he agreed that he was strong, so it would be difficult for him if he played normally, but he had already told them that he had a trick up to his sleeve. She suddenly started feeling hot and could not breathe. She wondered why her body was getting heavier, and Shuji asked her if she knew what would happen if they created a barrier in an enclosed space surrounded by flames. He told her there had been no oxygen, and the temperature would continue to rise, meaning their barrier couldn't block everything. He asked them if they would continue to suffocate to death inside the barrier or if they would burn outside, so he asked the black mage to choose how he wanted to die. The protagonist yawned and was stunned, wondering why he was yawning. He asked if he knew his situation, and the protagonist said he understood more than him. He asked him if he did something but told him that his female ally was on the verge of dying, as they could see. Leona was stunned as she was not feeling suffocated now, and the inside of the barrier also became cooler than before. She became angry, and the protagonist said that he was glad that his free magic could affect the atmosphere, but it seemed that he didn't know about the fact that magic alone also exists in the atmosphere. He wonders what he is talking about, so the protagonist tells him that a magic barrier is a mixture of magic from the caster and nature. Magic exists in the atmosphere and has the properties of the atmosphere. He used his magic power to get rid of his fire magic and told him that the magic itself is both air and a shield, and he asked him if that was educational enough, but got on the ground and grabbed his head. He thought it was impossible and wondered how things turned out this way as his tactics were perfect, and he was supposed to be the best man who could torture and kill anyone. The protagonist said that he wouldn't let him faint now as he liked to torture, so he should go ahead and feel the same pain as his victims, and he used the magic on him that activated the dark zone. Shuji was in the dark area due to the magic, and he wondered where he was, but his voice wouldn't come out, and he couldn't hear anything, and he couldn't see a thing nor feel anything. He was running unthinkingly, asking for help, and wondering where he was, and the protagonist told him to pay for his past sins in the depths of darkness. Detective Leona told him that someone reported this place, so he grabbed her and said they should leave. But she told him to wait for a second and asked him if they were going to fly again. But she was scared. Later, they were at the top of the building and watching the police raiding the warehouse, and she said that with this, the Kabukicho's black rebellions would be destroyed, and he guessed that he had to clear the next district. She asked for a favor from him and asked if he would like to be her ally. She said that although she was powerless and might slow him down, she had the information and connections, so she needed his help and requested him to be her ally. The protagonist said that he just realized that he is weak to people's requests, so he agreed with her and was looking forward to working with her, and she said that she is also keen to work with him. She told him that she would take care of the public relations and gathering allies so he could leave that to her, and he wondered what kind of public relations she was talking about. Later, there was news about the incident, which reported that many members of the secret organization Black Rebellion had been arrested and that the Black Mage was also involved in the arrest. Currently, the case is under investigation. The reporter received the breaking news, the declaration message from an illegal mage organization led by the Black Mage, which said they are Shadow Bringers. He is the Jet Black Annihilator who stood up to exterminate the illegal mages centered on the Black Rebellions, and any injustice committed by the mages will be unacceptable no matter who he is. So they should remember this. The boss of the Black Rebellion heard this message and got angry, so he broke the table and cursed him. But the person next to him told him that he didn't need to get fired up as he was just an insignificant person. He thought this was true and said that Black Rebellions had him, and Fuka-jin said he was right as he had a mage noble like him. On the news, the man commented that he had always been skeptical of these magic nobles. They are supposed to protect the people, but their actions in videos and press conferences have always been appealing. During the calamity, they barely responded. It was genuinely outrageous, and the unique magic uni functions more effectively, and they asked if they needed mage nobles anymore. Fuka-jin heard this and got so angry that he broke the lead and instructed his servant to bring Shu to him. And he said he would show them what happens when they cross the mage nobility. Meanwhile, in New York, two men were arguing about moving the car first, but none of them agreed, and the monsters appeared, so they ran for their lives. The police arrived at the calamity's location and said they would clear them. They attacked the monster but thought it was too many, and his fellow asked where the SMAT team was and told him that Calamity was haping everywhere, so they wouldn't be there anytime soon, and he thought they were useless fools. Then, an explosion occurred, and the boss appeared. The officers wondered how to beat these creatures and what to do. The demon captain used a level 5 blazing column whose flame was intolerable for them, and then someone used a level 5 titanic bubble to subdue the fire, and the officers wondered what had just happened. They heard the announcement that the Calamity Specialist was on site, so they should coordinate and initiate containment. The specialist was Mai Zuhatu Shiru from the Japanese magic nobility. The mage noble went down and attacked the demon boss and defeated it, and the officer was glad and praised him. Later, he was at the airport to leave, and the mayor shook hands with him and thanked him. Because of this, the damage was limited, so they showed their gratitude. Shiru said that it was his job, so he didn't need to thank him. The officer was gossiping that the Japanese acting all high and mighty thought they used to be impressive, but now he has fallen from grace. He said that apart from the magic noble, his level is relatively low, and thought Japan might be done for, and the mayor thought it was unfortunate that he was leaving right after the battle and said that Japanese folks sure do work hard. He told him that there were pressing issues he needed to address back home, and the mayor wished him success while leaving, and he thought that the Japanese reputation, the state of the magic nobles, and the fact that his daughters were in the particular unit, this all couldn't go on. Meanwhile, Ryuji thought that Kusanagi was way too powerful. It was almost unnatural. But he might be the strongest in Japan. Yuika also didn't deny this, and his sister thought he didn't seem to be giving his all. Shidu said they would have a chance of winning if they attacked him altogether. No matter how strong he was, they wouldn't lose, and Yuika agreed as they had all gotten much more substantial. Ruka thought they had 100 members in their squad, and Ryuji said that not even Kusanagi could beat those odds, and the protagonist asked them if they wanted to try it. They were mortified and said they were making casual conversation, and he asked them if they were now running away, and if he was that intimidating for them. He told them to break over as their next training objective is to try and defeat him. Anything is allowed, so they should give it everything they have. They said that they asked for it, so they shouldn't, and that he was underestimating them too much. So they decided to bring him down and used full strength from the start. The protagonist added the barrier, and Yuika said it wouldn't be able to protect him. But he was using the level 4 high magic barrier, and they got worried as he added another barrier. But they decide to stay focused and break through with all their might. But they cannot break the barrier, and they are stunned as they fire a level 6 spell at him. Ryuji swore that something was wrong with him, and Ruka expected him to be challenging. But not like this. The protagonist guessed it was his turn and was going to attack them. But they were terrified. Later, they were all lying on the ground, and he told them that today's training was over, and they thought he was the monster. And the Mai Zuha sisters heard their phone tone. They took their phone out of their bag and were shocked after looking at it, so he asked them what was wrong, and they said that it was a message from the father and he was coming home. They were meeting their father and were afraid of how their father would react. He said that he heard that they had joined the special magic squad, and they said yes, so their father asked them all about it. They were so happy, and Yuika said that the special magic squad was making considerable contributions to society as they had resolved numerous calamities, and everyone in it was just excellent. Ruka told her father that they had also grown so much from before as their magic power had doubled so that they could use higher level spells now. Yuika said that this all happened thanks to Kusanagi and everyone else. Her sister also said that he is an incredible person, and if it were not for him, they wouldn't have grown much, and stopping the calamities would have been so challenging. Shiru thought he might be quite an exceptional individual, and they said that he might be on par with him as he is at the level of a magic noble. After he finished drinking his tea, he told them to leave the special magic squad. They were stunned and asked why. So he said to them that they might be aware that, at present, the reputation of the magic nobles is on the decline, so this had a negative implication on Japan. He said that the magic nobles support their country, so the special magical squad brings no help but harm to them, especially Kusanagi, so he told them that he wouldn't allow them to have any further association with him. They shouted that it was unfair as this was a one-sided decision. But he said they always listened to him, so it should remain that way. Yuika thought she always obeyed her father's words. She never talked back to him, but now she wouldn't accept this, so she refused to give up on the unique magic squad and Minato. He is someone who could save the world. Besides, they have been training non-stop, too, and the special magical squad is doing what magic nobles should do. She said that they had happily cooperated if he asked, but she would have quit, and her father told them to consider themselves disowned and never claim to be a magic noble again. Ruka was worried, but Yuika said that she understood while leaving. She happily said that she would operate in the special magic squad not as magic noble but as Maizuha Yuika and left. Her father never expected her to behave this way, so Ruka told him that she had changed from before and was also changed, so she was also leaving. He told her that if she was also going with her, she should stop using the name Maizuha. She understood that if it were disownment, she would accept this. She thanked her father for everything and left. Shiru thought his daughters failed to see the importance of the magic nobles. Yuika thought the father was being one-sided as they and Minato were trying to do their best, and her sister acted with her as if their life belonged to them. Ruka said that because they parted ways did not mean they should stop moving forward. But Yuika asked her if she was sure about leaving the family. She told him not to worry as they shared the same sentiments, and she also couldn't leave her little sister alone because she was the elder one, and she grabbed him so happily. They went to the hotels to stay, but they didn't take them, and she was worried as all the places didn't take the minors. Ruka thought she could lie about her age for the hotel, but didn't know her sister could. She thought it was weird as they had money from the special magic squad activities but couldn't use it. While they were talking, two boys came and commented that they were cute and wondered if they were celebrities and asked them to hang out with them while sitting next to them. They asked if they minded seated with them. She gets furious, but he thinks they are so lucky. Ruka gets angry and tells them to stay away from her sister, otherwise they are dead. They get scared and apologize as they did lousy, and she thinks they are idiots and asks her sister what is wrong with her, but she says nothing. She grabbed her and said they should have some fun. But she was worried about their place to stay. Yuika told her they could worry about this later. They went to get some dresses and a teddy bear and then went to karaoke. While returning, she said that they had done so many things today and had so much fun, and Ruka said that she had never played so much since she was born. Yuika came in front of her, smirked, and said that she was delighted that she had her sister, but they needed to figure out where to stay and thought that the problem would be solved if someone could take them in. She received a message from the protagonist, who asked her to teach her how to use the phone as he forgot it. They went to his place, and he wondered why they were suddenly visiting him. She asked him if he was okay if they stayed with him at his residence. In his home, he asked them if they ran away from their home and if they don't think it was a bit extreme, and they were mortified and asked him if he thought that so as they were aware of the fact. The protagonist thought they had changed. They seemed more honest with themselves now and got along better as sisters. Yuika said she knew they were troubling him by suddenly asking this but asked if they could stay there for a while, as they had nowhere else to go. He thought he acknowledged them as a woman, but it was not like they had any romantic interest, so it shouldn't be a problem, so he agreed to let them stay at his residence. They were happy, and he told them they should know his place was cramped, but they didn't. They appreciated his help and thought they were such a handful of pairs. Yuika felt different from the usual Minato as they were going to live together from now on, so she felt like they were doing something crazy. Her sister also felt strange as they were going to share the same roof with him, but she tried to calm herself. He asked them if they wanted to take the shower, and they were stunned, so he asked them if they wanted to take it, but they said they wanted to take the shower. When Yuika went to shower, he told Ruka that he never thought they would run away from home. But she was also as surprised as he was because this was the first time they went against their father. She said that her father had always been strict and never the one to tolerate any form of independence, but she expected him to become more resolute in his effort against the calamities and monsters in the future. The protagonist said that his impression of the special magic team is rather abysmal, so he might take action against those who know this, and she came out after taking a shower and felt great. She told Ruka that she could take a shower, so she went to take a shower, and Yuika's told him that it felt strange being in his room like this. He said that it was the first time that anyone had been in his house. She thanked him. If it was for him they had probably still been on the streets. But he told her not to worry as this wasn't a big deal. She laughed, so he asked her what was wrong, and she said that he always said the same thing. He told her that the special magic unit was his team, and they both were his squad members and friends, so he wouldn't abandon them no matter what happened. He would help them through anything. She was startled and felt strange as her heart was pounding so fast. After she came out to shower, he went as it was his turn, and Ruka looked at her as she sat sadly. Later, he was with Shido, who was telling him the training schedule, but he had no problem with this, so the regular meeting between them ended when Kusanagi told him that he had something to report. He told them that Maizuha's sisters were living with him, and he was shocked and asked if the three of them were living together, and he said yes. Shido thinks he is living with not just one but two girls and wonders why he is so calm about this and if this is the norm among the youth now. He thinks he is the strange one, so he guesses that he had to teach him some common sense. And he tells him that Japan doesn't practice polygamy. The protagonist asks him if this is supposed to be the trend nowadays. On his way, he thought that 3 people in that room were cramped. Maybe he should consider moving. Officer Sanada was training after she got exhausted. The protagonist appeared and asked her if she was still training. She said she was lagging, so she decided to work out. She told him that she was finally at the level where she could use offensive spells and that he was their leader, so there was no need for the formalities, as they were now subordinate. He said he would casually with her from now on, and she smiled. Then he told him to try firing an offensive spell as he would give him some advice. She fired the offensive spell, and he told her that she had improved a lot and told her to keep it up, and then she would get even stronger. She thanked him. She thought that compared to everyone else, she was still weak, but he told her that she was underestimating herself as he thought she had been working hard enough, and she said that the reason she even got into the police was because being the holy mage is rare. She thought there was no way someone like her could be on par with everyone else because she was weak in the squad. But she hated feeling this way about herself and apologized as this must be weirding him out. He asked her why she joined the police, and she said that her grandmother was a holy mage and she helped many people during the calamities that happened long ago. She wanted to become like her grandma, so she joined the police, though she has passed away now, and said it might be a mediocre reason for her not having ambitions or goals like everyone else. So she guessed that she was no good as she couldn't do anything, and he told her that she had her strength as she could heal people, and she had learned to use offensive spells that were already pretty amazing. He told her that it doesn't matter why he chose this path, it's what she does that counts, as she is working hard and putting her all into it. He told her that she had come a long way, and it showed, and she started crying later. She apologized about what she did as she might be an empathetic adult to him, but he told her that age doesn't matter. She told him he was right. When she saw him, she felt that way too and thanked him and thought that he had saved her many times. So she was a hero. At night, he was at the building as the Black Mage when he received the call from Leona and wondered why she suddenly called him. She told him that she had received the information he was curious about the dark rumors surrounding the magic nobles.